The echoes of Renaissance puzzles follow us through the quiet halls of the Vatican, where layers of memory remain untouched through the centuries. Some say that old writings and hidden symbols could show us a much richer history than what we've been told. We'll walk carefully along these forgotten paths, driven by curiosity and surrounded by silence. If you like exploring mysteries like these, remember to subscribe. Let your thoughts wander freely as we begin. The Vatican has always been a place full of mystery. Its secrets are carefully kept behind thick stone walls and beautiful grand architecture. For countless generations, it has been the center of power, faith, and shared memories. And yet, there are parts of the Vatican that most people will never get to see. Hidden rooms, sealed crypts, and forgotten passages that hold stories from the past that have never been told. These stories are hidden, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes because the truth is too risky to reveal. To the outside world, the Vatican seems like a peaceful sanctuary, full of amazing art, historical records, and holy places. But within its walls are secrets that could completely change how we understand faith, political power, and even the basic ideas of Christianity itself. These hidden truths have been carefully protected for hundreds of years, passed down through quiet talks and kept in dusty, forgotten archives. When people think of the Vatican, they often picture the grand cathedrals, the amazing works of art, and the important people who have shaped the Church's history. But behind the impressive buildings and religious ceremonies, there's a more private side of the Vatican. This side has stayed in the shadows, guarded in places only a few people can access, and kept away from the public eye. This is where the real mysteries lie, secrets that some might prefer never come to light. For example, in the Vatican archives, there are old manuscripts that have been hidden from humanity. These manuscripts are very different from the ones we hear about in religious services. They contain stories from early Christianity that have never been shared publicly. Some of these writings were left out of the Holy Scriptures. Others were hidden because they went against the official teachings of the Church, and some might even hold revelations about figures like Mary Magdalene and the importance of women in early Christianity. If these stories were fully revealed, they could completely change what we know about Church history. The Vatican's mysteries aren't just in manuscripts or letters, they're also hidden in art and symbols. Great artists like Leonardo da Vinci were hired to create works for the Vatican, but some of his pieces contain symbols and messages that have puzzled people for centuries. Was Leonardo da Vinci perhaps trying to tell us something about the hidden truths of the Church? Or did he have knowledge about the Vatican's past that we are still trying to figure out? Tonight, we'll start our journey to find these mysteries. We'll bring to light the hidden stories that the Vatican has tried to keep in the dark for centuries. So, take a deep breath, relax, and let's explore the dark corners of history together. The mysteries are waiting to be revealed, one story at a time. The Vatican isn't just a place, it's a whole universe, with layers of secrecy hidden beneath its calm and holy appearance. On the surface, it looks like a magnificent city, full of amazing architecture, grand works of art, and the sounds of choirs during services. Visitors from all over the world come to see the Sistine Chapel, St. Peter's Basilica, and the artistic treasures that decorate the walls of the Vatican museums. It seems like an open place, where anyone is welcome to explore and learn. But beneath this surface of marble and frescoes, there's another world, more private, more hidden. The Vatican has its own rules, its own government, and its own system for keeping things secret. Behind locked doors, the Vatican keeps documents, treasures, and truths that only a small group of people can access. Many of these are kept in places like the Vatican Secret Archives, a hidden vault that holds thousands of documents, some of which date back to the early days of Christianity. But the archives aren't open to everyone. Only those who have permission, mainly scholars and researchers, can enter these rooms, and even then, they might not be allowed to see everything. In these archives, hidden deep within the Vatican walls, are documents, covering everything from papal decisions to letters between religious leaders and reports from the church to governments and kings. But what's most fascinating about the Vatican's layers of secrecy are the things that remain hidden, the things the public might never see. There are letters that could change how we see history, documents that tell about parts of church history that have been purposely left out of the official story. There are accounts from the first followers of Christ, from figures who might have been forgotten or ignored, and from beliefs that have been suppressed over time. The Vatican has always been careful about what it shares with the world. The Church has shaped the history of Christianity to keep its own power. Over the centuries, the Vatican has carefully managed its public image. Some stories were told, and others were kept in the shadows. Some truths were hidden because they might have challenged church teachings or threatened its power. The Vatican understands that what stays hidden has power, because when it finally comes out, it can change everything. Even beyond the walls of the Vatican archives, there are levels of secrecy in church art and architecture. Every corner of the Vatican seems to tell a story, but not all these stories are meant for everyone to understand. The symbols in paintings, the way buildings are designed, and the placement of sculptures can hold hidden meanings that only those with the knowledge and privilege to see them can understand. As we dig into the Vatican's layers of secrecy, we'll bring these hidden stories and mysteries to light. What lies beyond these magnificent, accessible spaces? What truths have been buried so deeply that they've almost been erased from memory? The journey into the Vatican's secrets has just begun. The Vatican might seem like a peaceful place of devotion, but beneath its calm appearance lies a quiet influence that has shaped the world for centuries. It's not the kind of influence that comes from big speeches or grand prayers. Instead, it's an influence that moves slowly, carefully, and often unnoticed. It's the kind of influence that controls stories, shapes history, and affects decisions in the most subtle ways. At the heart of this influence is the Pope, the leader of the Roman Catholic Church. For centuries, the Pope has been an incredibly important figure, guiding not just matters of faith but also political issues. The Pope holds a unique position in the world, serving as both a spiritual leader and a head of state, with Vatican City as its own independent country. However, the Vatican's influence isn't just about the Pope, it's also about the quiet network of power around him. Behind the Pope are cardinals, bishops, and other officials who help guide the Church. But just as important are the countless priests, scholars, and advisors who work behind the scenes, quietly shaping decisions and policies. These figures have a special kind of control, not through public statements or flashy gestures, but through careful strategy and hidden influence. Their work happens in the shadows, often unseen by the outside world, but it's no less powerful. This quiet influence also reaches beyond the Vatican's borders. Over the centuries, the Church has influenced governments, shaped international relations, and played a role in major global events. And yet much of this influence is never fully revealed. Many of the Vatican's dealings with world leaders and political forces are kept private. These quiet negotiations and private talks have allowed the Church to keep its influence, even as the world around it changes. The Vatican's influence also shows up in how it handles information. The Church has long controlled knowledge, deciding what is taught, what is shared, and what is kept private. Books, documents, and teachings that question church doctrine are often suppressed or ignored. This way, the Vatican keeps control over the flow of information and makes sure that only certain ideas reach the public. Even in today's world, with information freely moving through the internet and media, the Vatican still manages to control the story when it comes to matters of faith and doctrine. This quiet influence is one of the main reasons why the Vatican has stayed so important for so long. It's not an influence that seeks the spotlight or demands attention. Instead, it's an influence that works in the shadows, carefully guiding the course of history. As we continue our journey through the Vatican's mysteries, we'll see how this subtle control has shaped the Church's past and how it continues to influence the present. The story of the Vatican's quiet influence goes back centuries, and its mysteries are still unfolding. The Vatican's secret archives are one of the most mysterious and fascinating places on Earth. Hidden behind the walls of Vatican City, they hold centuries of history, records, letters, and documents that tell the story of the Church, its leaders, and its role in shaping the world. But despite their importance, most of these archives are closed to the public, kept behind locked doors and protected by strict rules. The very name, secret archives, suggests that these documents contain information that shouldn't be shared with everyone. But what exactly is in these archives, and why is it kept hidden? The Vatican's secret archives aren't secret in the way we usually think of it, something hidden for a shocking or dangerous reason. The word secret in this context actually means private or personal. These archives contain the official documents of the Vatican, including papal letters, records of church activities, and legal matters. They are the historical documents of the Church, kept and preserved for centuries to make sure future generations can learn from the past. But because these documents relate to some of the most important decisions in Christian history, they have also been carefully guarded. Inside the Vatican secret archives, you'll find letters written by popes to kings, queens, and world leaders, covering everything from religious issues to political alliances. You'll also find records of important church decisions, many of which have helped shape the world as we know it today. The archives contain evidence of the Church's role in crucial moments in history, from the Crusades to the Inquisition. These materials go far beyond simple historical records. They are a key tool for understanding how the Vatican has influenced world events over the centuries. But these archives don't just hold the most famous chapters of history. They also contain papers about the Church's most private ties, the conflicts it has faced from within, and the strategies used to maintain control over its followers. There are documents that carefully describe the Church's attempts to censor certain ideas, fight heresies, and defend its own authority. These materials are precisely catalogued, but many can only be viewed by those with special authorization, like scholars or researchers who have obtained specific permission. Despite this, not all documents are available for viewing. The Vatican decides who can access what, and certain materials remain private for reasons known only to a small group of people. Over time, many have wondered what is truly hidden in these archives, what mysteries they hold, and why the Church has protected them so fiercely. Are there perhaps documents that could completely change what we know about Christianity? Are there letters that reveal truths the Vatican would rather keep hidden? There are probably writings that speak of lost gospels or ancient Christian beliefs that were suppressed. These questions continue to spark curiosity, given that the Vatican has consistently avoided making its most confidential documents fully public. In this story, we will address these questions and bring to light some of the mysteries that have been hidden in the Vatican's secret archives all this time. So, as we go on this exploration, remember that the archives are not just yellowed papers. They are the key to understanding the Vatican's dark past, and perhaps also what lies ahead. The Vatican is a place rich in contradictions, where holiness and secrecy exist side by side. To an outsider, it might seem like the heart of the Catholic faith, a place where faith, harmony and togetherness are the main values. But beyond the impressive walls of Vatican City lies a much more complex reality, where power and control matter just as much as the teachings of Christ. On the surface, the Vatican is a place dedicated to devotion and prayer. Every year, millions of people visit St. Peter's Basilica, admiring the amazing artworks, walking through the halls, and attending Mass in a space that has symbolized faith for centuries. The Vatican is home to the Pope, the highest authority of the Catholic Church, who speaks with authority on religious and moral issues. For most people, the Vatican represents the highest ideals of faith and purity, a place where believers come together to connect with God. But underneath this religious facade, the Vatican also works as a political organization. It is an independent state with its own government, laws, and ways of keeping control. The Pope is not just a spiritual leader, but also the ruler of the Vatican state. With an authority that goes beyond pure religion, the Vatican has been involved in politics for centuries, sometimes playing a quiet, hidden role to influence world events. In reality, much of the Vatican's power comes from its ability to keep things secret, working behind the scenes, where decisions are made away from public view. This dual identity of the Vatican, both spiritual and political, creates a world full of contradictions. The Church promotes love, compassion and forgiveness, but its history is also marked by control, power struggles and the suppression of ideas. The Vatican is known for hiding certain truths to keep its authority, and it has often tried to silence those who questioned its teachings. Throughout the centuries, the Vatican has controlled what people knew about Christianity, carefully choosing which stories to share and which to hide. For example, the Church long kept a tight grip on the Bible, deciding which books to include and which to leave out. Some texts, like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and other early Christian writings, were suppressed because they didn't fit with the Church's teachings. These books questioned the Church's authority and the place of women in early Christianity, so they were kept from the public. The Vatican's control over the Bible and other holy texts is just one example of how it has shaped history to fit its own version of events. The Vatican's contradictions are also seen in its relationship with science. Even though the Church values truth and knowledge, it has often stood in the way of scientific discoveries that went against its teachings. The most famous example is the trial of Galileo Galilei in the early 17th century, when he was condemned by the Church for saying that the Earth revolved around the Sun. The Vatican's fear of losing control over how people understood the world led it to slow down scientific progress. The Vatican's contradictions aren't just a thing of the past. Even today, the Vatican still faces the challenge of balancing its spiritual mission with its political power. The Church preaches the importance of helping others and caring for the poor. Yet, it's one of the richest organizations on the planet. It promotes peace, and yet it has been involved in political fights and power struggles. These contradictions are part of what makes the Vatican so fascinating and mysterious, a place where faith, politics, and secrecy have always been intertwined. As we look deeper into the mysteries of the Vatican, we'll keep exploring the layers of these contradictions and uncovering the stories that have been hidden all this time. The Jesuit order is one of the most powerful and influential groups within the Vatican, but few people really know its true role. Founded in the mid-16th century by Ignatius of Loyola in 1540, the Jesuits have always been key to the Vatican's mission, both spiritual and political. Known for their education, discipline and dedication, the Jesuits have played a big part in spreading the Catholic faith around the world. But their real power isn't just in their religious commitment, but in their ability to quietly influence the direction of the Vatican and affect global events by working behind the scenes. The leader of the Jesuit order, the Superior General, has a little-known title, but one that carries a lot of weight within the Vatican. Often called the Black Pope because of his powerful and almost secret influence, the Superior General is one of the most influential men in the Catholic world. His power is quiet, but huge. Unlike the Pope, who is the public face of the Catholic Church, the Black Pope works in the shadows, leading the Jesuit order and therefore influencing the direction of Vatican policies. He is believed to have more influence on the daily decisions of the Church than most people realize, with a reach that goes beyond religious matters. The Jesuits are not just missionaries and teachers, they are also skilled diplomats and strategists. Over time, they have been trusted with some of the most important tasks within the Vatican, including managing relationships with political leaders and advising the Pope on crucial decisions. The Black Pope, in particular, plays a decisive role in these areas, often being involved in delicate talks with leaders of nations and taking part in private reports with the Vatican. This ability to influence decisions without seeking public attention is what makes the Jesuits and their leaders so powerful. The Jesuit order has always been known for its focus on education, running schools, universities and seminaries all over the world. Their commitment to teaching has helped shape generations of Catholics and non-Catholics. But this focus on education also has a deeper purpose. It allows the Jesuits to spread the Church's influence in quiet and smart ways. By controlling education, the Jesuits shape how people understand religion, politics, and morality. They have used this influence to become one of the most trusted and powerful voices in the Church. Throughout history, the Jesuits have faced criticism for their secretive nature and their role in political and religious matters. They have sometimes been accused of having too much influence over the Vatican and even over governments. Despite this, the order has remained a central part of the Vatican's inner workings. It's their quiet power, combined with their ability to adapt to changing situations, that has allowed them to keep such influence within the Church for more than 400 years. As we keep exploring the mysteries of the Vatican, the role of the Jesuit order and the influence of the Black Pope will become clearer. Their power isn't always visible, but it's deeply woven into the fabric of the Vatican's history, making them an essential part of understanding the Church's secret workings. The role of the Superior General of the Jesuit order is shrouded in mystery, making it one of the most powerful and quiet positions in the Catholic Church. Unlike the Pope, who is known worldwide and plays a very public role, the Superior General works in the shadows, leading one of the Vatican's most influential orders with little fanfare. The Superior General is often called the Black Pope because of the quiet but huge power he has over the Jesuit order and his influence on Vatican decision-making. The title Black Pope doesn't refer to a particular colour of clothing, but rather to the authority and influence the Superior General has often seen as more powerful than many believe. While the Pope guides the entire Catholic Church, the Superior General is the head of the Jesuits, an order that plays a key role in the spiritual and political aspects of the Vatican. The Jesuits are known for their devotion, training and intelligence work, and their leader has the ability to shape the direction of the Church and its policies in ways that often escape the public. The Superior General is not just a spiritual guide, but also a skilled strategist. He is trusted with some of the most sensitive issues within the Vatican and plays a decisive role in managing relationships between the Church and world governments. It is said that the Black Pope has been involved behind the scenes in many important decisions, including political negotiations, advising the Pope on fundamental issues, and even decisions that impact the Vatican's approach to global events. This quiet, almost invisible influence is what makes the Superior General so powerful. His decisions, though often not public, shape how the Vatican interacts with the world. A key part of the Superior General's power is his control over the Jesuit order. The Jesuits are known for their deep loyalty, strict discipline, and intellectual skill. They work with a level of secrecy that allows them to influence events without drawing attention to themselves. Jesuits have held key positions within the Vatican and around the world, often working in diplomacy, education, and charity, areas where they can quietly shape people's beliefs and actions. Under the guidance of the Superior General, the Jesuits have expanded their reach and influence in ways not always visible, but incredibly effective. The Superior General doesn't just guide the Jesuits in spiritual matters. He also plays a crucial role in guiding their involvement in politics and world affairs. This power is used with great responsibility, and the Superior General's decisions can have far-reaching consequences. His ability to move between the worlds of faith, politics, and education gives him a unique position of power within the Vatican. The role of the Superior General has often been a source of fascination and guessing. While the Pope's role is clear, the Black Pope's influence is more hidden, but no less important. As we continue to explore the mysteries of the Vatican, the secret power of the Superior General will become clearer, showing how much influence the Jesuits have over the Church and the world. The Jesuit order, officially known as the Society of Jesus, was founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola, a Spanish priest and former soldier. Ignatius had a vision for an order that would serve the Church in a disciplined and flexible way, focusing on education, missionary work, and a deep spiritual dedication. His goal was to create a group that could respond to the ever-changing world, helping to spread the teachings of the Catholic faith while also influencing the course of history. Ignatius began his journey by gathering a small group of men who shared his vision. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, but their commitment to the mission went beyond these vows. Ignatius wanted his followers to be completely dedicated to serving the Church, even if it meant travelling to places where the Church had little influence or where it faced challenges. The Jesuits were not meant to be confined to monasteries or separated from the world. They were to engage with the world, using their training and intellect to promote the faith in every corner of the globe. The Jesuits quickly became known for their education system. They founded schools, colleges, and universities throughout Europe and, later, in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Their schools were different from others at the time because they focused on both religious and secular studies, offering a complete education that emphasized critical thinking and intellectual development. The Jesuits believed that by educating the mind, they could better serve the Church and guide others in understanding both faith and reason. Their influence grew quickly, and soon they were involved in important missions all over the world. Jesuit priests travelled to faraway lands to spread Christianity, often reaching places where no missionary had been before. They founded churches, schools, and hospitals, creating lasting communities that would continue to support the Church for generations. They became particularly influential in places like South America and Asia, where their commitment to education and missionary activities had a lasting impact on local cultures and societies. But the Jesuit order was not without its critics. Over time, their growing power and influence caused concern among some church leaders. In the 18th century, they were even temporarily shut down by the Pope, who feared their influence in political and religious matters. Despite this setback, the Jesuits were brought back by Pope Pius VII in 1814, and their work continued to expand. The creation of the Jesuit order was not just about building schools or converting people. It was about creating a group of individuals ready to go anywhere, face any challenge, and dedicate themselves to the service of the Church. The Jesuits were willing to adapt to the needs of the world while holding on to their deep spiritual beliefs. This balance between faith and action made the Jesuit order one of the most powerful and long-lasting forces within the Catholic Church. Their legacy of education, service, and intellectual rigour continues to shape the Church even today. The Jesuits are often seen as a quiet force within the Catholic Church. Unlike many other religious orders, they don't seek the spotlight, but their influence is felt all over the world. Their strength comes from their ability to work quietly behind the scenes, while still having a powerful impact on both the Church and society. It's through their education, their missions, and their intellectual contributions that they have shaped the course of history, often without drawing attention to themselves. One of the key aspects of the Jesuits' quiet strength is their focus on education. Jesuit schools are known for their tough academic programs, and they have trained some of the brightest minds in history. The Jesuits don't just teach religion, they teach a complete education that includes science, literature, history, and philosophy. Their schools are designed to develop the whole person, encouraging students to think critically and to engage with the world around them in a thoughtful and aware way. Throughout the centuries, this focus on education has allowed the Jesuits to quietly spread their influence, shaping how people understand both faith and reason. But the Jesuits' influence goes beyond the classroom. They have been involved in missionary work all over the world, often going to places that others might have ignored. They were among the first to bring Christianity to some parts of Asia, Africa, and the Americas. They learned local languages, built schools and churches, and worked to understand and respect the cultures they found. Their approach was not to force their beliefs on others, but to engage with people in a thoughtful and respectful way. This made them successful in places where other missionaries had failed, and it helped build strong relationships between the church and local communities. Another important aspect of the Jesuits' quiet strength is their ability to influence without being noticed. They often work behind the scenes, advising the Pope and other church leaders on important matters. While they don't hold the same public position as the Pope, their advice and guidance are key to shaping the Church's policies and decisions. The Jesuits are known for their deep loyalty to the Church, and their commitment to its mission allows them to have a quiet but lasting influence on the direction of Catholicism. This quiet strength has allowed the Jesuits to last through both times of triumph and times of difficulty. Even when their order was shut down by the Pope in the 18th century, the Jesuits continued their work in secret, adapting to the ever-changing world around them. When they were brought back by Pope Pius VII in 1814, they returned stronger than ever, continuing their work without missing a beat. Their ability to stay strong even in the face of trouble is a testament to their deep commitment to faith and mission. The Jesuits' strength doesn't come from flashy displays or loud statements. It comes from their ability to quietly shape the world around them, guiding the Church through intellectual, spiritual, and cultural change. Their quiet strength has made them one of the most influential orders in the Catholic Church, and their impact continues to be felt even today. The influence of the Black Pope is one of the most fascinating and mysterious aspects of the Catholic Church. Even though the Church doesn't give him this title, the Black Pope refers to the Superior General of the Jesuit Order. This person has a lot of power behind the scenes. This figure has the special ability to influence the Church's direction without the public attention the Pope gets. His work is quiet but very important, and his influence goes beyond the Vatican walls. The Superior General of the Jesuits holds a very powerful position, overseeing a worldwide network of missionaries, teachers, and priests. The Jesuits are one of the most organized and influential orders within the Catholic Church, and the Superior General leads their work, which often includes complicated political, educational, and social matters. His influence isn't just about religious things, it also affects world politics, education, and even diplomacy. While the Pope's work is more visible, the Black Pope often works in the shadows, giving advice and helping to make decisions that affect the Vatican and the world. Unlike the Pope, whose power comes from being the leader of the Catholic Church, the Black Pope's power comes from his control over the Jesuit order. Jesuits are known for being loyal, disciplined, and smart, and they work all over the world in universities, schools, and missions. They are present in almost every country, which gives the Black Pope a unique influence. Jesuits often hold powerful positions in governments, universities, and the Church itself. Because of this, their influence is very wide, and the Superior General plays a key role in managing this global network. This influence hasn't always been without problems. Jesuits have been involved in political movements and have often been asked to help settle things between different political groups. Throughout history, the Black Pope's quiet diplomacy has helped shape many important decisions in the Vatican. For example, the Jesuit order has had a strong presence in Latin America, and their role in political matters has sometimes led to both praise and criticism. The Black Pope's ability to lead the Jesuit order through complex political situations shows how powerful his position can be. Even though the Black Pope's role isn't well known to the public, his impact is undeniable. His control over the Jesuits allows him to subtly influence the Church's direction, sometimes without needing public attention. His advice can guide the Pope in important decisions, and his role in church diplomacy can affect the Vatican's policy on world matters. It's a quiet but effective form of power that works behind the scenes. The Black Pope's power reminds us of the hidden forces at work in the heart of the Vatican. While the Pope is the supreme leader of the Church, the Superior General of the Jesuits is a powerful force in his own right, shaping the Church's destiny through his network of dedicated Jesuits. It's this invisible influence that makes the figure of the Black Pope so fascinating, a mystery that continues to play a crucial role in the inner workings of the Vatican. The Vatican's relationship with power has always been special, something that has shaped its history over the centuries. Even though it's the spiritual centre of the Catholic Church, it has also been deeply involved in the world's political and social power structures. The Vatican is more than a place of prayer. It's also a centre of influence that has greatly helped shape global decisions and events. Over the centuries, the Vatican has had strong ties with different political leaders and government institutions. The Church started getting involved in politics very early on when it teamed up with powerful European rulers, giving them religious support in exchange for help. This relationship was good for both. Rulers needed the Church's support to have more authority, while the Church needed the protection and support of these kings to spread its influence. This teamwork allowed the Vatican to become a political force, extending its presence across Europe and beyond. During the Renaissance, the Vatican's connection to power became even more important. Popes like Julius II and Leo VI used their position to influence not only religious matters but also politics and culture. They supported art, commissioning amazing works from artists like Michelangelo and Raphael, which boosted their prestige and influence, but their power also reached into politics. The Vatican actively participated in wars, alliances, and negotiations, often playing a key role in European power struggles. One of the most important examples of the Vatican's political influence was its involvement in creating the Papal States. These territories, which stretched across central Italy, gave the Vatican direct control over a large piece of land. The Pope wasn't just a spiritual leader, he was also a monarch with an army, a treasury, and a court. The Papal States allowed the Vatican to use its power over Italy and play a role in European politics, even though the Vatican's political power changed over time. Still, it remained very important in world affairs. In the 19th century, for example, the Vatican's diplomatic influence was clearly seen during World War II. Pope Pius XIII was criticised for how he acted during the war, especially his reaction to the Holocaust. Some said the Vatican should have been stronger in condemning the terrible acts. However, the Vatican's careful diplomacy allowed it to maintain its influence with both the Axis powers and the Allies. This delicate balance was part of the Church's long tradition of using diplomacy to keep its power, often in ways that weren't obvious to the public. In more recent years, the Vatican has continued to influence international politics through its diplomatic missions and its relationships with world leaders. The Pope has been an important voice on issues like peace, human rights, and global justice. However, the Vatican's role in political matters is always handled with great care. Its power isn't always obvious, but it's always active, guiding decisions and shaping events from the shadows. The Vatican's relationship with power isn't limited to religious influence. It's a complex mix of politics, diplomacy, and strategy that has allowed the Church to survive and grow through centuries of change. Whether it's its alliances with monarchs and emperors or its careful diplomacy in the modern era, the Vatican has shown that its influence goes far beyond the walls of St. Peter's Basilica. The Vatican has a much more complicated and hidden history than many people think. Even though it's known as the heart of the Catholic faith, it's also a place full of secrets, forgotten stories, and lost documents which are carefully kept away from the public. Over the centuries, much of the Vatican's true history has been hidden, not because of bad intentions, but because the Church needed to protect certain truths. What we see today is only a part of the Vatican. Beneath the surface, there are hidden layers that tell a different story, full of mystery and secrets. The Vatican's hidden history includes many documents, letters, and records kept in private archives. These documents could change how we understand historical events and even question some of the teachings we've accepted as truth. Some of these hidden documents date back to the early days of Christianity, long before the Vatican became the powerful institution we know today. For centuries, very important documents have been collected and stored in the Vatican archives, but many have never been available to the public. Scholars, researchers, and even the most curious have long tried to bring these lost truths to light, but access to them remains limited and sometimes even forbidden. One of the most famous examples of the Vatican's hidden history is the Archivum Secretum, meaning the Vatican Secret Archives. Despite its name, these archives don't contain hidden treasures or dramatic conspiracies. Instead, they hold centuries of documents and records that the Church has carefully preserved. Some of these documents reveal crucial aspects of the Vatican's involvement in politics, diplomacy, and even conflicts. There are letters and reports from the highest levels of power, including popes, cardinals, and world leaders, that describe in detail decisions made in secret. What's even more intriguing is that some of these documents are still sealed, and many believe they hold the answers to questions that have been unanswered for centuries. For example, there are accounts of the Inquisition, which was a dark period in church history. During this time, many people were persecuted for their beliefs, and the Vatican played a key role in this. However, much of what happened during the Inquisition remains hidden in the archives. Some of these documents could explain why certain people were targeted and why the Church took such drastic measures to control religious thought. The Vatican's hidden history also includes the stories of early Christian communities that were suppressed or lost. In the early days of Christianity, there were many different groups with different beliefs about Christ and the Church. Some of these groups, like the Gnostics, were considered heretics by the Vatican. Over time, their teachings were suppressed, and their writings destroyed or hidden. However, some of these lost Gospels and texts still exist today, and the Vatican has kept them hidden for a long time, fearing they could challenge the Church's authority if revealed. The Vatican's hidden history isn't just about what has been intentionally hidden, it's also about the stories that have been lost over time. As the Church's power grew, many of the original teachings of early Christianity were changed or forgotten. The Vatican's history is full of moments when important truths were suppressed, ignored, or simply lost over time. The idea of the Vatican's hidden history makes us wonder what secrets are buried within its walls. We may never find all the answers, but the existence of these hidden documents reminds us that history is never as clear as it seems. There are always deeper layers waiting to be discovered, and the Vatican is no exception. Leonardo da Vinci is one of the most famous figures in history. Known for his genius in art, science, and invention, he is also a central figure in the mysteries surrounding the Vatican. Leonardo's work wasn't just about making amazing paintings. Many believe his art contained secret messages that pointed to hidden truths, some of which might be related to the Vatican's deepest secrets. Leonardo da Vinci spent time in Rome in the early 16th century, working for Pope Julius II and then for Pope Leo VI. Although he is often remembered for his masterpieces like the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, his time in Rome and his relationship with the Vatican were full of fascinating possibilities. Leonardo wasn't just an artist, he was a thinker, someone who saw the world from a unique perspective. His interests ranged from anatomy and engineering to the study of light and shadows. But it's his artistic work, especially the hidden symbols and meanings in his paintings, that has attracted the most attention. One of his most famous works, The Last Supper, has been the subject of intense debate for centuries. Many believe there are hidden messages in the painting, messages that suggest a different story than the Church has always taught. Some think Leonardo deliberately put symbols in the artwork to question the Church's story about Jesus Christ and his disciples. Some theories suggest that the figure sitting next to Jesus in the painting is not John, as traditionally believed, but Mary Magdalene. This idea, made popular in works like the Da Vinci Code, raises questions about why such a secret might be hidden in one of the most famous religious paintings of all time. It's possible that Da Vinci's knowledge and curiosity led him to discover secrets that the Vatican wanted to keep hidden during his stay in Rome. He wasn't just an artist, but also an inventor and a scientist, someone who saw the world through a different lens. He had access to some of the brightest minds of his time, and some believe he knew ancient texts and gospels that the Vatican kept hidden. There are hints that Da Vinci was in contact with people involved in the early Christian church's debates about which texts should be accepted as truth and which should be suppressed. Some of the Gospels that were hidden or lost, like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, were considered controversial because they presented a different view of Jesus and his followers. These Gospels, often considered heretical by the Church, challenge the idea that the Vatican has always had the final say on Christian teachings. Leonardo's paintings, especially The Last Supper, are seen by some as subtle hints of these hidden truths. Leonardo's relationship with the Vatican's secrets isn't just a matter of guesswork. It's clear that he was a very curious man about the world around him, including the secrets that were hidden within the Vatican's walls. His art and inventions show that he wasn't afraid to question established truths, and some believe that in some way he was trying to reveal what others wanted to keep hidden. The mystery of Leonardo and his connection to the Vatican's secrets continues to fascinate historians, artists, and curious minds. Whether his paintings contain hidden messages or not, it's undeniable that his stay in Rome and his interactions with the Vatican were full of the kind of intrigue and mystery that still captivates us today. One of the most famous paintings in the world is Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. Painted between 1480 and 1498, it shows Jesus eating his last meal with his disciples before the crucifixion. Although this work is often praised for its beauty and artistic skill, it has also caused countless debates over the years. Some believe the painting contains a hidden message that could change how we understand the story of Jesus and his disciples. For many centuries, the Last Supper was seen as a simple picture of the biblical story. However, some thinkers and researchers believe there's much more to it. The first clue is in how Leonardo arranged the figures in the painting. There's a really interesting balance in how the disciples are grouped, 3 to Jesus' left, 3 to his right, and 4 in the middle. This makes it feel very balanced, but also kind of mysterious. Some people think these groups mean more than just disciples at dinner. One particularly puzzling detail is the person sitting next to Jesus. In old stories about this scene, the person next to Jesus is always John, the disciple Jesus loved. But some experts think it might actually be Mary Magdalene. This idea got really popular after the Da Vinci Code book came out in 2003, but art historians have been talking about it for much longer. If it really is Mary Magdalene, it makes you wonder about her relationship with Jesus and what role she might have played in early Christianity. The idea that there might be a hidden message in the Last Supper suggests that Leonardo was trying to tell us something deeper. Maybe he was questioning the usual way people understood the Bible, or offering a different view of Jesus' story. Leonardo was known for being curious and interested in science, philosophy, and religion. It's possible he used his art to share his own beliefs, or to challenge what the church taught back then. Another idea is that how the figures are placed in the painting, especially their hands, is meant to show secret messages. Some believe the way their hands are arranged forms a symbol that could mean something hidden. For example, how Jesus and the disciples next to him reach for the same dish could mean a secret bond or a deeper connection between them. No matter what the real meaning of the Last Supper is, it's clear that Leonardo used his art to show more than just a simple Bible scene, whether he meant to hide a secret message or not. The painting is still super interesting to scholars, historians, and anyone who's curious about old mysteries. The idea that there might be a hidden message waiting to be found is one reason why The Last Supper is still one of the most studied and intriguing artworks ever. Leonardo da Vinci wasn't just an artist, he was also a man who loved to explore the deeper meanings of the world around him. His art is full of symbols and hidden messages that many believe go beyond what you see at first glance. Even though he's famous for his amazing paintings, it's the tiny details in his works that have sparked curiosity and mystery for centuries. His use of symbols in art might have been his way of sharing ideas, beliefs, and secrets that weren't always accepted by society. One of the most famous examples of Leonardo's use of symbolism is in his masterpiece, The Last Supper. In this painting, every detail, from how the disciples are arranged to how they're sitting around Jesus, seems carefully planned. Many scholars have noticed that Leonardo used the arrangement of the figures to suggest deeper meanings. For example, how Jesus and the disciple next to him reach for the same dish could symbolize a bond or even a hidden truth about their relationship. Some believe that the position of their hands and how they interact can reveal more than just the simple biblical story of the meal. Leonardo was also known for his interest in science and nature, and he often used his art to show this interest. His studies of anatomy, for example, were used in his paintings to make the human figures more realistic and lifelike. But some believe that these anatomical studies also held hidden meanings. For example, the way Leonardo painted the human body might have been his way of showing the connection between the body and the soul, an idea often talked about by thinkers of his time. Some also say that his careful study of the human form was a way to show his belief in the divine order of nature, suggesting that the body reflects a higher truth. Another painting full of symbolism is the Mona Lisa. This famous work is known for its mysterious smile that has puzzled people for centuries, but it's not just the smile that has meaning. Many art historians believe that the background of the painting, with its winding paths and distant mountains, is meant to suggest a journey or the passing of time. The contrast between the woman's calm expression and the dynamic background could be Leonardo's way of showing the balance between inner peace and the ever-changing world around us. Leonardo's use of symbolism wasn't just about making beautiful art. It was about sharing complex ideas and beliefs in a way that made people think. His paintings often invite the viewer to look deeper, to search for hidden meanings that could reveal something about the world, about the human soul, or even about the mysteries of life and the universe. Whether intentional or not, these symbols have made Leonardo's work a source of fascination for generations and continue to inspire people to look beyond the surface and explore the deeper messages in his art. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene is one of the most fascinating and debated texts from early Christianity. For centuries it was lost, forgotten and hidden, but it has recently been rediscovered and studied by scholars. This old gospel is different from those in the New Testament and shows Mary Magdalene not just as a follower of Jesus, but as a key figure in early Christianity with her own message. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene was found in the late 1800s in a collection of old writings called the Nag Hammadi Library. This collection had many early Christian texts that had been put aside or forgotten over time. The Gospel of Mary is often seen as one of these Gnostic Gospels, which means it offers a different way of understanding Christian teachings than what became common in the Church. In this Gospel, Mary Magdalene is shown as someone with deep spiritual insight who teaches the disciples about the soul and how to find spiritual knowledge. What makes the Gospel of Mary Magdalene so important is how it challenges the usual ideas about her role in Christianity. In the New Testament Gospels, Mary Magdalene is often just seen as one of Jesus' followers. In some traditions, she's even been shown as a repentant, sinful woman. However, in this Gospel, Mary is presented as a wise and powerful teacher who understands the mysteries of the divine. She's shown as a close friend of Jesus, someone who not only saw his teachings but was also trusted with a deeper understanding of his message. One of the most interesting parts of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is how it talks about knowledge and wisdom. The text suggests that spiritual knowledge comes from within, rather than from outside authorities like priests or churches. Mary Magdalene, in this gospel, teaches that true understanding of God comes from personal experience and inner insight, not just from rules and rituals. This idea was very radical for the time, as the early church was focused on keeping strict control over religious teachings. The idea that women, and especially someone like Mary Magdalene, could have such deep spiritual wisdom was a threat to those in power. Despite its controversial nature, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene shows a side of early Christianity that many didn't know existed. It paints a picture of a woman who was not only a devoted follower of Jesus, but also a guide and a teacher in her own right. In many ways, this Gospel challenges how history has traditionally viewed women in religion. It raises questions about the role women played in the early Christian movement and why their contributions were often ignored or suppressed. Today, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene continues to be a subject of fascination and debate. Scholars keep studying it, trying to understand its meaning and importance. For many, it represents a lost part of Christian history where women were given a more significant role in shaping the faith. Whether or not this gospel holds the answers to the mysteries of early Christianity, it offers a different view of the past that invites us to rethink the stories we've always been told. The lost Gospels, including the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, offer a different look at early Christianity, a view that has been hidden from traditional history for a long time. These Gospels were not included in the Bible as we know it today, and for many centuries they were lost or purposefully hidden. But over time, many of these old texts have been rediscovered, giving us a new perspective on the stories of Jesus and his followers. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene is just one of many Gospels left out of the official Christian canon, the collection of books that make up the New Testament. These lost Gospels were often seen as too radical or controversial by the early church, and they presented ideas that challenged the teachings of the leaders at the time. The texts were often written in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, many years after Jesus' life, by groups of Christians who believed differently from those who formed the foundation of the church we know today. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene paints a picture of Mary as a guide among the disciples, someone with great spiritual insight. In this Gospel, she's not just a follower, but also a teacher who shares wisdom she received directly from Jesus. This way of showing Mary Magdalene as a central figure in early Christianity is very different from the more common portrayal of her as a repentant sinner. Instead of focusing on her past, the Gospel of Mary shows her as a powerful figure with deep spiritual knowledge. Other lost Gospels, like the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip, also show Mary Magdalene in a different light. These Gospels, often called Gnostic texts, contain teachings that focus on personal spiritual knowledge and a direct experience of the divine instead of relying on the Church's authority. In many of these Gospels, Mary Magdalene plays a significant role, and her story is told in ways that suggest she was an important guide in the early Christian community. The reasons why these Gospels were lost or suppressed for so long are still unclear. Some scholars believe the Church wanted to control how Jesus' teachings were understood and saw these alternative views as a threat. Others suggest that the Gospels were simply lost over time, buried in forgotten libraries or hidden by those who thought their ideas were too dangerous to share openly. In the early Christian Church, there were many different beliefs and teachings about who Jesus was and what he really meant for humanity. The lost Gospels show that there wasn't just one version of Christianity, but many. These alternative texts offer a richer and more varied understanding of Jesus' teachings and the role of women in the early Christian movement. The rediscovery of these Gospels, especially those that highlight Mary Magdalene's role, has sparked new interest in her story. It has led to new questions about why her story remained buried for so long and what her true role in the early church might have been. These lost Gospels, though often ignored or neglected for centuries, are now important pieces of the puzzle for understanding the full history of Christianity. In the early days of Christianity, women held important positions even though their contributions were often ignored or hidden. by later church teachings. The stories of these female figures, including Mary Magdalene, show that women weren't just followers of Jesus, but actively helped spread his message. Over the years, however, the official story of early Christianity focused more and more on male leaders, while women's contributions were downplayed or even removed. Mary Magdalene is one of the most well-known female figures in the New Testament and is often remembered as one of Jesus' closest disciples. She witnessed some of the most important moments of his life, including the crucifixion and resurrection. In particular, she was the first person to see the resurrected Jesus and was given the job of telling this amazing news to the others. Despite this crucial role, Mary Magdalene's position within the church weakened over the centuries, often being wrongly described as a repentant sinner, instead of the strong and devoted figure she truly was. Other women in the early Christian movement, like Mary, Jesus' mother, and the women who travelled with Paul, also played essential roles. These women supported Jesus and the apostles in their mission, helped spread the teachings, and acted as guides in the first communities of believers. In the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, we see her not only as a follower, but also as a teacher who shares wisdom with the male disciples. This shows that in the beginning, women were seen as spiritually equal to men and had the ability to lead and teach. Sadly, as the church became more organised, the role of women within it began to change. When the New Testament was put together, many of the early Christian teachings had already been shaped and controlled by men. The idea that women could take on leadership roles in the church started to fade away. As the church worked to establish authority and build a consistent belief system, it was important to keep control over religious practices and teachings. Female roles, which had been significant at first, were now seen as a threat to the established order. This change wasn't just about limiting women's roles within the church, it also reflected broader cultural ideas about women's place in society. The early Christian movement had initially attracted many women because it offered a more inclusive view of spirituality where both men and women could hold leadership roles. But as the church's power grew, its teachings began to reflect the male-dominated structures of the time. Female roles were gradually erased from the official story, and their histories were ignored or rewritten. Nevertheless, the influence of women in early Christianity cannot be denied. In the lost Gospels and other ancient texts, women are shown as spiritually equal to men. They often held leadership roles. These texts remind us that, at one point, women were central to the spread of Christianity. They weren't just followers. They were active participants who helped shape the early church and its teachings. Today, with the rediscovery of these stories, we can start to better understand the important role women played in the early Christian movement and what their histories can teach us about the past. The Vatican has always been careful about how it presents the stories of early Christianity. One issue that has caused concern in the church for centuries is that of Mary Magdalene, not because of her actions, but because of the role she played in the early Christian movement. The idea that Mary Magdalene may have been more than just a follower of Jesus, perhaps even a leader in the early Christian community, has always made some members of the church uncomfortable. For centuries, the Vatican has been cautious about accepting the full story of Mary Magdalene. Early Christian writings, especially Gnostic texts, paint a very different picture of her than the one traditionally told by the Church. In these writings, Mary is not just a sinner seeking forgiveness, as many have taught, but a powerful and respected figure who possessed deep spiritual knowledge. In some texts, she even has conversations with Jesus that are not found in the traditional Gospels. These conversations suggest that she was a leader in her own right, and that her knowledge and role in the early church was significant, but these ideas were dangerous to the growing authority of the church. Church leaders were working to create a clear and unified history of Christianity, and Mary Magdalene's story did not fit into their vision. If the church had recognized her importance and leadership, it would have raised uncomfortable questions about the role of women in the early Christian movement. It would also have called into question the church's control over doctrine and the narrative of its history. When the official Christian Bible was formulated in the 4th century, Mary Magdalene's story had been modified, her role was minimized, and, in some cases, completely erased. The Church focused on presenting her as a repentant sinner rather than the leader and teacher she could have been. This version of her story became the one most people would know for centuries. The fear was that, if her true role as a spiritual equal to the male apostles were revealed, it could upset the balance of power in the Church and society. This fear was not just about the diversity of her story, but also about the message it carried. If a woman could be a leader in the early Christian Church, this would have called into question many of the Church's teachings about the role of women in society. For a long time, the Vatican has worked to keep this narrative under control. It has worked to suppress any text or idea that could suggest that women had an equal role in the founding of Christianity. The fear of the Magdalene narrative was much more than just one woman. It was about the meaning her story could have on the way people perceived the power of women in the Church and in the world. Although the Vatican never openly condemned the story of Mary Magdalene, it kept it hidden in the archives, rarely discussed in public, but with the discovery of new texts and the re-evaluation of old ones, more and more people are beginning to see the Magdalene that the Vatican has tried to hide. The story of Mary Magdalene is not just a story of the past. It is a story that challenges our way of thinking about power, gender, and the true origins of Christianity. It is a story that continues to cause a stir, and it seems that the Vatican's fear of it was much greater than anyone thought. The early Christian Church had to face many challenges during its growth. One of the most difficult problems was deciding who had authority within the Church. At first, there were many voices and many ideas about what Christianity was and how it should be practiced. Some of these voices came from women, and many of them were strong, influential, and deeply spiritual. But as the Church became more organised and formal, it was decided to limit the roles of women within it. The suppression of female authority within the Church did not happen overnight. In the early days of Christianity, women were active participants. There are stories of women who helped spread the Christian faith, and some were even intimate companions of Jesus. Mary Magdalene, for example, was often called the Apostle of the Apostles and played a crucial role in spreading Jesus' message after his death. However, with the growth of Christianity and the formation of a more structured hierarchy, church leaders began to focus on maintaining control. Over time, church leaders decided that the main leadership roles should be played by men. This change was due in part to the growing Church's desire to create a unified message that could be spread throughout the Roman Empire. With the spread of the influence of the early Christian Church, the need for a clear and uniform message also increased. The role of women in that message was slowly erased. One way the Church maintained control over doctrine and leadership was by limiting the authority of women. Church teachings began to emphasize the importance of male leadership, minimizing or even erasing the role played by women. Women who were once considered important figures were gradually marginalized. The stories that had highlighted their leadership, their knowledge, and their spiritual wisdom were often buried or altered. The suppression of female authority became a central element of the Church's strategy to maintain control. If women could be considered equal to men in the early Church, this would have called into question the hierarchical structure that the Church had worked so hard to build. It would also have called into question the teachings about the role of women in society that the Church had reinforced for centuries. If Mary Magdalene and other women had equal spiritual authority, what did this mean for the role of women in the Church and in the world? It was a question the Church did not want to answer. Over the centuries, this repression became more and more entrenched. The Church focused more on male leadership, often limiting the roles of women to domestic tasks. In many ways, the Church's teachings about women shaped the way society viewed them. Women were seen as caregivers, mothers and supporters, but not as leaders or teachers. Although women continued to play important roles in the life of the Church, their authority was often ignored or minimized. The Church's fear of female authority has had lasting consequences. Even today, many people find it difficult to accept the idea of women holding positions of power within the Church. The stories of women like Mary Magdalene continue to challenge the established narrative, but the Church's long history of repressing female authority still casts a shadow. The Inquisition represents one of the darkest chapters in the Vatican's history. It began in the early years of the Church around the 12th century as a tool to eradicate heresies, ideas, and beliefs that the Church considered dangerous or false. What began as a method to protect the faith soon became something much more dangerous. It was not just about protecting religious teachings, but also about maintaining power and control. The Inquisition targeted those who questioned the authority of the Church or who held different beliefs. These were often intellectuals, scientists, and ordinary people who simply did not follow the rules established by the Church. Over the years, the Church became increasingly fearful of anyone who questioned its doctrines, and the Inquisition was used as a tool to silence dissent. It became a way for the Vatican to ensure that no one could threaten its authority. One of the best-known periods of the Inquisition took place during the 16th and 17th centuries, especially during the period of the Catholic Reformation. It was during this period that the Church took the strictest measures against those it considered heretics. People were tried and, if found guilty, could face severe penalties. In some cases, punishments included torture, execution, or burning at the stake. The most infamous trials often targeted those who dared to challenge the Church's teachings, such as Galileo Galilei. He was one of the first to argue that the Earth revolved around the Sun, but this idea was contrary to the Church's teachings. As a result, Galileo was tried by the Inquisition and forced to recant his views. The hidden dark side of the Vatican during the Inquisition lay not only in the trials and punishments, but also in the secrecy and control that the Church exercised over the lives of ordinary people. The Church had enormous power, and this power allowed it to shape what people believed, what they could read, and even the way they lived their daily lives. The Inquisition was part of a much broader strategy of information control. Books, manuscripts, and ideas that did not fit into the Church's teachings were often destroyed, or people were prevented from reading them. This control of knowledge was as dangerous as any trial or execution, as it prevented people from thinking for themselves. Many people accused of heresy during the Inquisition were innocent of any real crime. They were simply people who had different ideas or who spoke out against the Church's doctrines. The fear of punishment led many others to remain silent or to accept what the Church demanded, even if they did not share it. The Inquisition left a deep scar on history, which for centuries made many people afraid to question authority. Even today, the shadow of the Inquisition hangs over the Vatican, reminding us how far the Church went to protect its power and silence its critics. Galileo Galilei is often remembered as one of the most famous scientists in history, but his story with the Vatican reminds us how the Church once confronted ideas that challenged its authority. In the early 17th century, Galileo made revolutionary discoveries with his telescope that changed the way people conceived of the universe. He was one of the first to support the idea that the Earth revolved around the Sun and not the other way around. This idea, called heliocentrism, had been proposed by Nicholas Copernicus decades earlier, but Galileo's observations provided strong evidence to support it. At that time, the Church firmly believed in the geocentric model, which stated that the Earth was the centre of the universe. This belief was based on interpretations of the Bible and had been accepted for centuries. When Galileo published his discoveries, this created enormous controversy. The Vatican considered Galileo's support for heliocentrism a threat to its teachings and its authority. Church leaders believed that the idea of a moving Earth was contrary to the biblical description of the universe. In 1626, Galileo's work attracted the attention of the Roman Catholic Inquisition, the same organization that had previously been involved in silencing other ideas it considered dangerous. Galileo was summoned to trial for heresy, accused of promoting a theory in contradiction with the Church's teachings. At the trial, Galileo was forced to recant his views and publicly admit that he had been wrong. He was convicted and his books were banned. He was also placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. Galileo's conflict with the Vatican was more than just a battle between science and religion. It was also about control over knowledge, control over the interpretation of sacred texts, and control over what the public could believe. The Church feared that if people began to believe that the Earth was not the centre of the universe, this could lead people to question other Church teachings as well. Galileo's ideas represented a change in the way people viewed the world, and the Church did not want that change. Only many years later did the Vatican acknowledge its error. In 1983, the Catholic Church officially lifted the ban on Galileo's works. However, the damage was already done. Galileo had suffered for his beliefs, and the Church's reputation had been tarnished in the eyes of many. Despite the Vatican's eventual recognition of his contributions, the conflict between Galileo and the Church remains a striking example of how the Vatican has sometimes had to deal with new ideas and discoveries that challenge its authority. During World War II, the Vatican found itself in a complex and difficult position as war raged across Europe. The Vatican, led by Pope Pius XIII, faced the challenge of maintaining neutrality. Officially, the Vatican was not involved in the conflict, but its role in the war events has been the subject of much debate. At the beginning of the war, in 1939, Pope Pius X chose not to take a firm public stance. The Vatican's position of neutrality was aimed at protecting the Church and its faithful from the devastations of war. However, behind the scenes, the Vatican was closely involved in the political and diplomatic affairs of the time, particularly in its relations with Nazi Germany. One of the most controversial aspects of the Vatican's involvement in World War II is its response to the Holocaust. As Nazi forces systematically exterminated millions of Jews and other minorities across Europe, news of the Church's silence spread. Some historians have criticised Pope Pius XIV for not speaking out more strongly against the atrocities committed by the Nazis. Although the Vatican helped some Jews escape the Nazis by providing them with false documents or offering them refuge in its own buildings, the Church's public statements on the matter were minimal. The Vatican's silence during that period has raised questions about whether it had a secret understanding with the Nazis, or whether it was simply trying to stay out of the political conflict. Some have argued that the Vatican's efforts to maintain neutrality led it to avoid condemning the Nazis too openly. Others suggest that Pope Pius XIV feared that taking a strong stance could provoke Hitler with even more serious consequences for Catholics and Jews in Europe. The relationship between the Vatican and Nazi Germany remained complex throughout the war. In 1933, the Vatican signed the Reich Concordat with the Nazi regime, which recognised the Church's authority in Germany in exchange for the Vatican's commitment not to interfere in German politics. Some historians argue that this agreement was an attempt by the Vatican to protect its institutions and ensure the safety of its members during a period of growing Nazi power. After the war, Pope Pius XIII's role during the Holocaust remained a deeply controversial issue. Some argued that the Pope had failed to act decisively in the face of Nazi crimes, while others pointed to his behind-the-scenes efforts to protect the Church and its faithful as proof of his silent diplomacy. For many years, the Vatican's actions during World War II remained largely hidden, and the details of the Church's involvement in the conflict only came to light in the decades that followed. Today, the Vatican's actions during World War II remain a sensitive topic, with debates about the true extent of its involvement in the conflict and its response to the atrocities of the Holocaust. The story of the Vatican's role during this dark period of history remains shrouded in mystery, with some chapters of this complicated story still waiting to be fully revealed. The Vatican has always played a quiet but important role in world politics. Even though it's a tiny city-state surrounded by Rome, its influence reaches far beyond its walls. The Vatican's power doesn't come from military strength or money, but from its spiritual authority and the Pope's position, who is seen as a moral guide by millions of people worldwide. This makes the Vatican a major player in shaping global events. Throughout history, the Vatican has worked behind the scenes to keep its influence in world politics. One of the most important tools the Vatican uses for this is diplomacy. The Vatican has ambassadors called nuncios in many countries, which lets it talk directly with governments and world leaders. Thanks to these diplomatic efforts, the Vatican has been able to influence policies on things like war, peace, and human rights, offering its moral guidance to leaders all over the world. The Vatican's relationship with the United States is a great example of its role in world politics. In the 1980s, during the Cold War, the Vatican played a key role in supporting the efforts of the United States and its allies to stop the spread of communism. Pope John Paul II, who was born in Poland, was especially important in this. His open opposition to communism and his support for the Polish Solidarity movement helped inspire political changes in Eastern Europe. Many historians, in fact, believe that Pope John Paul II's leadership played a big part in the fall of the Soviet Union. The Vatican has also been involved in international peace efforts. Over the years, the Pope has often acted as a mediator in conflicts, urging nations to find peaceful solutions instead of going to war. For example, in 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Pope John XXIII called for peace and offered the Vatican's help to calm things down. Even though the Vatican's influence hasn't always been enough to stop violence, its role as a voice for peace has been recognized around the world. Another key area of the Vatican's influence is its stance on global issues like poverty, inequality, and human rights. The Church has often used its moral authority to speak up for the poor and oppressed, urging governments to act on things like hunger, education, and healthcare. In recent years, Pope Francis has focused a lot of his attention on climate change, asking world leaders to take responsibility for the planet's health and to care for the most vulnerable. Despite its relatively small size, the Vatican remains a powerful force in world politics. Its ability to influence governments, shape international policies, and promote peace makes it a key player in global affairs. The Vatican's diplomatic efforts and moral leadership have left a lasting impact on the course of world history, and its role in politics will likely remain important for many years. Vatican diplomacy often works quietly behind the scenes, away from public view. While most governments use visible methods like public speeches or press conferences, the Vatican prefers a more private approach. This approach has allowed the Vatican to maintain its influence in world politics without drawing too much attention to itself. Vatican diplomats, known as nuncios, serve as the Pope's representatives in various countries and play a crucial role in managing international relations. Unlike most nations, the Vatican doesn't have an army or significant wealth. Its power comes instead from its deep moral and spiritual influence, which gives it a unique place in global diplomacy. The Pope's voice, often heard on issues like peace, human rights, and justice, carries a weight that many other leaders can't match. The Vatican uses this moral authority to influence political decisions and encourage governments to act with compassion and fairness. One of the Vatican's most important diplomatic tools is the Holy Father's ability to stay neutral. The Vatican doesn't take sides in many conflicts, which makes it a trusted mediator. Throughout history, the Vatican has played an important role in bringing warring nations together. In 1940, during World War II, Pope Pius V worked behind the scenes, trying to negotiate peace between the Allies and the Axis powers. Even though his actions were controversial and criticised, They showed the Vatican's willingness to use its position for peace. Another example of the Vatican's hidden diplomacy happened during the Cold War. During this tense period, the Vatican secretly worked with the United States and other Western countries to fight the spread of communism. Pope John Paul II, in particular, played a key role in this effort. His personal history in communist Poland gave him a unique perspective on the threat communism posed. Through quiet diplomatic channels, he supported freedom movements in Eastern Europe, especially in his home country, where he strongly supported the Solidarity movement. Many believe his support helped bring an end to communism in the region. The Vatican's diplomatic efforts aren't just focused on global politics, but also on improving relations between different religions. For example, Pope John Paul II was dedicated to improving ties with the Jewish community, making historical visits to synagogues and apologizing for past mistakes. More recently, Pope Francis has focused on building better relationships with Muslims and other religions. These actions show how Vatican diplomacy goes beyond politics and into areas that promote understanding and peace among different peoples. Vatican diplomacy is often done quietly, away from the spotlight, but its impact is undeniable. The Vatican's ability to negotiate, mediate, and influence countries and people around the world has made it a key player in global affairs for centuries. Whether promoting peace in times of war or advocating for social justice, the Vatican continues to shape the world through its unique form of diplomacy. There's a mystery surrounding the Vatican archives that many have tried to solve for centuries. It's believed that many lost documents are hidden within the Vatican. Documents that hold secrets about the Church, the world, and maybe even history itself. These documents aren't just old papers, but pieces of history that could change how we understand the past. The idea of lost documents has sparked imaginations for generations, and the Vatican has kept them hidden from the public for a long time. One of the most famous mysteries is the disappearance of many documents related to the Knights Templar, a medieval order of warrior monks. These documents, once carefully guarded by the Templars, have never been fully recovered. Some believe the Vatican played a part in their disappearance, as the Templars had issues with the Church. These missing documents could contain details about the order's wealth, its spiritual beliefs, and its mysterious end. What truths could they reveal about Church history, especially its relationship with powerful groups from the past? There are also stories about other important documents lost to time. Some believe that ancient codes, perhaps containing writings from early Christians, were hidden or destroyed by the Church. These writings could offer new ways of looking at early Christianity, including different versions of Jesus' life or about the first church leaders. The idea that these documents could change our understanding of faith and history has fueled countless theories and guesses over the decades. The Vatican has long kept its archives very private. Only a few scholars with special permission are allowed to see the most sensitive documents. Even then, it's said that certain documents remain sealed or hidden from view. Some argue that the Church has purposely kept certain documents secret to control what is revealed and what stays hidden. This secrecy has only made the fascination with the Vatican's missing documents even stronger. In recent years, some attempts have been made to bring these hidden documents to light. New technologies, like advanced scanning systems, have allowed researchers to examine ancient manuscripts without opening them, which gives hope that some of the lost documents might one day be revealed. There are even some who believe these documents may hold the key to uncovering forgotten truths, not just about the Church, but about the whole world. The Vatican's lost documents are one of history's biggest puzzles. For now, they remain locked away in the Vatican's secret rooms and hidden crypts, carefully guarding their secrets. What could they tell us? Only time will tell if these lost pieces of history will ever be found, and if they will change how we understand the past. The mystery of the Templar documents has fascinated historians, researchers, and even everyday people for centuries. The Knights Templar were a powerful military order founded in the early 12th century, famous for their bravery in the Crusades and for protecting Christian pilgrims travelling to the Holy Land. Over time, the Templars gained wealth and influence, but with their rise came distrust and fear. In the early 14th century, the Templars faced a dramatic downfall. King Philip IV of France, deeply in debt to the Templars, accused them of heresy and ordered their arrest. In 1305, Pope Clement IV, under pressure from the king, dissolved the order. Many Templars were captured, tortured, and executed. Their lands and wealth were seized, and their archives, including their most important documents, disappeared. The fate of the Templar documents after the order was dissolved is a mystery and a subject of much speculation. Some believe the Vatican played a part in hiding these documents to protect church interests or to prevent certain secrets from coming out. It's thought that the documents might have contained information about the Templars' wealth, their religious beliefs, and even secret knowledge they might have guarded. Over time, rumours have spread that the Templars might have hidden some of their most valuable archives before their downfall. Some argue that these documents were hidden in secret places, perhaps in crypts deep within the Vatican catacombs, or even in remote locations across Europe. Others suggest that the Templars might have left clues through symbols and hidden messages in their artwork and architecture, like in the famous Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland. The idea of lost Templar documents has captured many imaginations. The documents could tell a different story of the Templars, different from the official version written by those who wanted to get rid of them. These documents could reveal something about the Templars' true purpose, or about the secret knowledge they guarded and why they were hidden so carefully. Some researchers have dedicated their lives to uncovering the truth behind the lost Templar documents. They have examined old archives, pieced together clues, and explored ancient sites where the Templars might have hidden their documents. And yet, the mystery remains. Despite all attempts, no one has fully managed to uncover the secrets that these lost documents might hold. While the search for the Templar documents continues, one thing is clear. The mystery surrounding these documents isn't just about the past, but also about what might still be hidden, waiting to be discovered. The Templars' secrets might still be locked away in the depths of history, waiting for someone to find them. Throughout history, the Church has sometimes been at the centre of attempts to suppress knowledge considered dangerous, or against its teachings. One of the most terrifying ways to do this was through the burning of heretics. The term heretic was used to describe anyone who held beliefs contrary to the official teachings of the Church. In the Middle Ages, if someone was accused of heresy, they could face terrible consequences, including being burned at the stake. The fear of heresy in the Church went back centuries, becoming especially strong during times of big changes. In the early 15th century, for example, the Church faced challenges from thinkers who questioned its authority and teachings. People like John Wycliffe and Jan Hus began to speak openly about church practices, especially the selling of indulgences. These individuals wanted to reform the Church, but their ideas were seen as a direct threat to its power. The Church, determined to protect its own authority, reacted with violence. In 1415, Jan Hus was burned at the stake after being found guilty of heresy. He had asked for changes within the Church, arguing that the Bible should be available to everyone, not just the clergy. Huss's death sent a clear message. Any challenge to Church teachings would not be tolerated. Perhaps the most famous example of burning heretics was the execution of Joan of Arc in 1431. Joan, a young peasant girl, claimed to have received visions from saints telling her to help drive the English out of France. Despite military successes, Joan was eventually captured by the English and handed over to the Church, which accused her of heresy and witchcraft. Joan was burned at the stake, and her death became a symbol of the extreme measures the Church was willing to take to maintain control. The burning of heretics wasn't just about punishing individuals, it was also a way for the Church to control knowledge. When a person was burned, often all the books, writings, or teachings they had created were also destroyed. This meant that ideas that challenged church teachings were erased, sometimes forever. Knowledge that could have changed how people thought about faith, history, or science. It was lost in the flames. The burning of heretics not only silenced dissenting voices, but also shaped the history that would be passed down to future generations. By controlling what people could believe and what ideas they could develop, the Church kept its influence strong. It's said that many of history's most important discoveries were hidden or suppressed because they went against Church teachings. Over time, the Church's control over knowledge weakened, new ideas began to spread, and the Enlightenment brought new ways of thinking. However, the legacy of those who were silenced, whose books were burned, and whose ideas were suppressed, remains a haunting reminder of the power the Church once held over knowledge and history. The Knights Templar were one of the most powerful and mysterious groups in medieval history, and their influence on Vatican history cannot be underestimated. The Templars were originally formed in the early 12th century during the Crusades. They were created to protect Christian pilgrims travelling to the Holy Land, but over time their role greatly expanded. The Templars became one of the wealthiest and most influential organisations in Europe, with their own network of castles, properties, and banking operations. The Templars were closely connected to the Vatican, as they were officially recognised by the Church in 1126. They received special privileges like tax exemption and the ability to collect donations from knights and Christian rulers across Europe. With their wealth and power, the Templars played an important role in shaping church politics and were often seen as defenders of the faith. Their knights fought in the Crusades, and it was believed they were entrusted with powerful secrets related to Christian history. But with the rise of Templar power, they also became a threat to those who felt threatened by their influence, including the Vatican. In the early 14th century, the Templars were suddenly accused of heresy and other serious crimes. In 1307, Pope Clement V, under pressure from King Philip IV of France, ordered the arrest of the Knights Templar. Many Templars were tortured and executed, and the order was officially dissolved by the Church in 1314. The question of why the Vatican turned against the Templars has been the subject of much speculation. Some historians believe the Vatican was worried about the growing Templar power and feared they might challenge church authority. Others suggest that the Templars had discovered secrets that the Church didn't want revealed, such as hidden treasures or ancient knowledge that could have undermined the foundations of Christianity. The mysterious end of the Templars only fueled their legend. Many of their secrets, including their immense wealth and treasures, disappeared, and some believe these secrets were hidden in places like the Vatican itself. Throughout the centuries, the Templars have continued to be a source of fascination, with theories about their hidden knowledge and their connection to secret societies that continue to capture the imagination of people worldwide. The influence of the Knights Templar on Vatican history is a complex and fascinating story. Although they were once trusted allies of the Church, their downfall marked the beginning of a long history of intrigue and secrecy surrounding the Vatican. The relationship between the Templars and the Vatican raises important questions about the hidden forces that shape religious and political power, and reminds us of the mysteries that still remain hidden in the shadows of history. The Vatican has had a deep influence on art and culture throughout history. As the heart of the Catholic Church, it has been a powerful patron of the arts, commissioning some of the greatest works the world has ever seen. Many of the most famous artists from the Renaissance and later were invited to create their masterpieces within the Vatican's walls. These works were not only meant to inspire faith, but also to show the Church's power, wealth, and authority. One of the most famous examples of the Vatican's influence on art is the Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo painted his iconic ceiling. In the early 16th century, Pope Julius II asked Michelangelo to decorate the chapel's ceiling with biblical scenes. The result was a series of extraordinary frescoes, including the famous image of the creation of Adam. The chapel's ceiling became a symbol of the church's magnificence and the depth of its connection to the divine. Visitors from all over the world continue to marvel at the beauty and detail of the work. The Vatican also played a key role in building St. Peter's Basilica, one of the world's most famous churches. The basilica was designed by some of the greatest architects of the time, including Michelangelo, Raphael, and Bramante. The church became a symbol of the Vatican's power and its role as the centre of the Catholic faith. Its grand dome, which rises above Vatican City, is an iconic symbol of both religious devotion and the Vatican's political strength. Throughout history, the Vatican has used art as a tool to spread its religious message. Paintings, sculptures, and buildings were not just splendid artistic works. They were also used to teach and inspire people about biblical stories and the lives of saints. These works were often placed in churches, cathedrals, and other places of worship, where they could help people connect with their faith in a deeper way. The Vatican's art collection, which includes thousands of works from various eras, continues to remind us of the Church's influence on culture and the art world. The Vatican's influence also extended to the world of music. Throughout history, the Church was an important patron of musicians and composers. It was in the Vatican's choirs and chapels that some of the world's most famous music was composed and performed. Composers like Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart created music for the Church, shaping the sounds of Catholic worship and influencing the development of Western classical music. In addition to its artistic influence, the Vatican also played a key role in shaping Western culture through its control over education and the preservation of knowledge. Throughout the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the Vatican was the centre of knowledge, preserving ancient texts and promoting the growth of intellectual thought. It was in the Vatican's libraries that scholars studied the works of ancient philosophers, scientists, and theologians, ensuring that the knowledge of the past was passed down to future generations. The Vatican's influence on art and culture has been vast and long-lasting, shaping the course of Western art, music, and architecture, and its masterpieces continue to inspire awe and admiration even today. The Vatican's role as a patron of the arts also reveals how the Church used culture not only to glorify God, but also to strengthen its own power and influence over society. The Vatican is full of artistic works that have captivated visitors' imaginations for centuries, but beyond the beauty of these works, there are hidden symbols and messages that many people never notice. These symbols are carefully placed, often with deep meanings that are not immediately obvious. Some of these symbols have been used for hundreds of years, guardians of secrets and stories about faith, power, and knowledge. One of the most famous places where hidden symbols can be found is the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo's painting on the ceiling is full of intricate details and subtle messages. For example, the image of God reaching out to touch Adam's finger has long been interpreted as a symbol of the connection between God and humanity. But some believe there is much more to this image than meets the eye. Some have pointed out that the shape of God's outstretched hand closely resembles the shape of the human brain, perhaps hinting at a deeper connection between divine inspiration and human knowledge. Throughout the Vatican, symbols are found in unexpected places. The use of light and shadow is also an important technique in many artistic works. For example, in the dome of St. Peter's Basilica, the design uses light to draw attention to certain areas, symbolizing the guiding presence of God. Light seems to shine from above, as if heaven itself is watching over the faithful below. This use of light has been carefully designed to create a sense of awe and reverence. In addition to light, other symbols are woven into the architecture and art. One example is the use of the number 3. The number 3 has always been important in Christianity, representing the Holy Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. This number is present in various places, such as in the 3 entrances of St. Peter's Basilica, each representing a part of the Trinity. These symbols help connect the physical world with the spiritual, reminding believers of the Church's fundamental teachings. Even the Vatican's layout itself contains symbolic elements. The design of St. Peter's Square, for example, is said to resemble the outstretched arms of the Church, welcoming people from all over the world. The shape of the square and the way the columns surround it create a sense of protection, as if the faithful are embraced by the Church. This symbolism is intended to convey the idea of the Church's protection and care for its faithful. Some of the most mysterious symbols in Vatican art are those that seem to have a connection to secret societies and ancient knowledge. For centuries, rumours have circulated that hidden messages about secret teachings or power struggles can be found in the Vatican's artistic works. For example, some believe that certain symbols used in Renaissance art are related to Freemasonry or other secret organisations active in that period. While it's hard to be sure, the presence of these symbols adds an air of mystery to Vatican art. The hidden symbols in Vatican art remind us that an artistic work is often much more than what we see at first glance. They tell stories of faith, power, and history, and invite us to look deeper into the world around us. Whether they are meant to teach, inspire, or conceal, these symbols are an important part of the Vatican's rich cultural and spiritual heritage. The Vatican played a fundamental role during the Renaissance, a historical period that lasted from the 14th to the 17th century. It was a period of great change marked by incredible achievements in art, science, and culture. The Church, as the most powerful institution in Europe, had both the influence and the wealth needed to deeply shape this period. One of the main ways the Vatican influenced the Renaissance was through its support for the arts. The Church commissioned some of the most famous artistic works ever created. Artists like Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo da Vinci were invited to create masterpieces for the Vatican. These artists brought a new level of realism, beauty, and depth to their paintings, sculptures, and architectural designs. For example, Michelangelo's fresco on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel remains one of the most iconic artistic works ever made. The Vatican's role was not just to fund these artists, but also to guide the direction of art itself. The Church used art to teach religious stories, spread faith, and influence people's thoughts. Paintings, sculptures, and buildings became means to communicate religious messages. And the Vatican ensured that these messages were carefully crafted and consistent with the Church's teachings. In this way, art became a powerful tool for shaping people's beliefs and worldview. The Vatican also had a huge impact on architecture during the Renaissance. St. Peter's Basilica, one of the most famous buildings in the world, was designed in this period. The Church brought together the best architects, including Michelangelo, who worked on the construction for many years. The basilica's design became a symbol of the Vatican's power and prestige. The grand and impressive structure was meant to represent the glory of God and the strength of the Catholic Church. The Vatican's influence during the Renaissance was not limited to art and architecture. It also had a significant impact on the intellectual and scientific developments of the time. Although the Church is often associated with its opposition to new scientific ideas, it was also responsible for preserving much of the knowledge of the ancient world. In fact, many Renaissance scholars worked within the Church. It was thanks to these scholars that the rediscovery of classical texts and ideas took place. At the same time, the Vatican had to manage its own relationship with the rapidly evolving world around it. The Church tried to maintain control over what people thought and believed, especially as new ideas about science, philosophy, and politics began to spread. The Vatican's involvement in the Renaissance was not without its challenges, as it found itself struggling to balance tradition and progress. The rise of humanism, which emphasized individualism and reason, often clashed with the Church's emphasis on divine authority. Despite these challenges, the Vatican's involvement in the Renaissance helped shape the course of history. Its support for the arts, architecture, and culture created a legacy that still influences the world today. The Church's role in this period was a powerful reminder of how deeply interconnected religion, culture, and politics were, and how the Vatican was at the heart of it all. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the brightest minds of the Renaissance, had a unique and complex connection with the Vatican. His work, which spanned art, science, and engineering, affected many sectors of society, including the Church. Although he was not a member of the clergy, his talent was highly valued by the Vatican, and many of his most famous works were commissioned by the Church. Leonardo's connection with the Vatican began early in his career. In 1495, he was commissioned to paint The Last Supper, one of his most famous masterpieces, which depicts the moment when Jesus Christ shares his last meal with his disciples. This painting was made for the convent of Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan, a place that had close ties to the Church. The painting's composition, the arrangement of the figures, and the symbolism behind the scene reflect Leonardo's deep understanding of Christian theology, a crucial aspect when working for the Vatican. But Leonardo's relationship with the Church went beyond his art. He was known for his interest in understanding the natural world, a curiosity that sometimes led him to question traditional beliefs. In an era when the Church held immense power, any challenge to its teachings could be dangerous. Da Vinci, however, was careful to balance his scientific exploration with respect for the Church's authority. This careful management allowed him to continue working on projects that the Vatican greatly admired. Leonardo's knowledge of anatomy and the human body was revolutionary, and it is said that he studied human corpses to better understand their functioning. This knowledge, although not always openly discussed by the Church, was crucial in creating the realistic figures for which Da Vinci was known. It is also believed that his anatomical studies influenced some of the religious artistic works he created for the Vatican. His ability to paint the human body with such accuracy and emotion gave his religious works a depth that resonated deeply with viewers. In addition to his art, Leonardo's interest in science and invention also had an indirect connection with the Vatican. Some of his inventions and ideas, although not widely known during his lifetime, were later studied and admired by scholars within the Church. His machine designs, from flying devices to war machines, demonstrated an incredible understanding of the world that went beyond mere artistic talent. These ideas were often ahead of their time, and some were seen as a mixture of art and science, which the Vatican discreetly appreciated. Although the Vatican had not fully embraced all of Leonardo's ideas, it could not ignore the genius of his work. His paintings, like The Last Supper and St. John the Baptist, are still admired by the Church today, are part of the Vatican's vast art collection, and continue to tell stories of faith, power, and mystery. Leonardo's work, linked to both religion and science, represents a bridge between two worlds, the spiritual and the intellectual, often in conflict in his time. His connection with the Vatican, although complex, was undeniably significant. The Vatican, as the centre of the Catholic Church, has always claimed to possess the truth. For centuries, it has been seen as the guardian of religious knowledge, the place where faith and history are preserved. But hidden within the Vatican's walls are mysteries that challenge this simple view of truth. The Vatican's pursuit of truth is not just about what is known, but also about what's kept hidden and what is omitted from the public. Throughout history, the Vatican has strived to preserve certain truths, suppressing others. Many documents and secrets have been kept in the archives, protected from the curious eyes of the world. The Vatican's pursuit of truth is not just about understanding the past, but also about controlling how history is presented. The Vatican has often been concerned with ensuring that the stories it tells are in line with its teachings, and anything that does not conform to its narrative has been carefully hidden. The Vatican archives are vast and contain millions of documents dating back centuries of church history. These archives hold many secrets, some of which could reveal a different version of history. These documents could question the Church's authority and the way the world understands its past. but many of these documents remain closed to the public, their contents known only to a select few. It is said that these secrets could change the way people view Christianity and the Church itself. One of the most famous examples of hidden knowledge are the lost Gospels, such as the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. These texts, which tell a different story of Jesus and his followers, were once considered heretical by the Church. The Vatican has been reluctant to allow these Gospels to be widely read, fearing that they could undermine the traditional teachings of the Church. However, these texts suggest a different understanding of Christianity, which includes the role of women and portrays a more complex image of Jesus' message. In the past, the Vatican's pursuit of truth was sometimes a matter of political power. The Church played a central role in the political affairs of many nations, and its presence often determined historical developments. By managing knowledge, the Vatican was able to preserve its supremacy in both spiritual and temporal matters. Even today, the Vatican is an influential organization with a reach that extends far beyond the borders of Vatican City. Despite its strength, the Vatican's pursuit of truth is not without obstacles. Over time, the Church has had to deal with the rise of science and innovative concepts that questioned its precepts. Figures like Galileo Galilei were censored for proposing theories that contradicted Church doctrine. Even today, the Vatican must face the challenge of harmonizing faith with contemporary discoveries. The Vatican's pursuit of truth represents a delicate balance between faith, authority, and historical events. It is a path that continues to evolve with new discoveries and revelations that emerge over time. However, despite all the enigmas that remain hidden, there is also hope that one day the truth will come to light. And perhaps, in this process, the world will come to interpret the Church and its historical role from a renewed perspective. The Black Pope is a figure often spoken of in hushed tones. His power is both enigmatic and extraordinary. Officially known as the Superior General of the Society of Jesus or the Jesuits, the Black Pope holds a position not easily understood by most people. While the Pope, who leads the entire Catholic Church, represents the visible head of the Vatican, the Black Pope operates in the shadows, wielding an influence that many do not perceive. The Jesuit order, founded in the 16th century, has always played a relevant role within the Vatican. Known for their sharpness, preparation, and dedication, Jesuits have been assigned some of the most crucial tasks within the Church. But it is the Superior General of the Jesuits, the Black Pope, who truly holds sway over many of the Vatican's secrets. With his extensive network of devoted followers, the Black Pope has access to some of the most reserved information in the Vatican, including hidden documents and political strategies kept away from public knowledge. The Black Pope's power is discreet, but formidable. Unlike the public figure of the Pope, who frequently appears in the media and is visible to the world, the Black Pope remains largely in the shadows, guiding the actions of the Jesuit order and influencing decisions that affect the Vatican and even world politics. Although the Pope is the head of the Church, the Black Pope's influence often extends to areas not visible to the general public. The Jesuit order has contributed to crucial moments in history, including the exploration of the Americas, the spread of education, and even political maneuvers during periods of war. All these efforts have been guided in part by the Black Pope's control over his order. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Black Pope's power is his role in safeguarding the Vatican's secrets. As the head of an organization that operates globally and often secretly, the Black Pope has been able to control what information is disclosed and what is kept hidden. Many of the Vatican's darkest secrets, including lost manuscripts, hidden documents, and censored histories, are said to be guarded under the watchful eye of the Black Pope and his Jesuit followers. These secrets do not only concern religious matters, but also politics, power struggles, and the Vatican's involvement in world affairs. Throughout history, the Black Pope has been the keeper of many of these secrets. The Jesuit order is said to have often been called upon to handle delicate matters within the Vatican, matters that require secrecy and careful handling. These matters could include political issues, church scandals, or even threats to the Vatican's power. In these cases, the Black Pope is the one who decides how much information to share and with whom. The Jesuit order, loyal to its superior general, works under his direction, keeping many of the Vatican's most important matters out of public view. The control the Black Pope has over Vatican secrets is an ongoing mystery, continuing to shape the Church's influence in the world. While many know about the Pope's role as the head of the Catholic Church, fewer understand the quiet, powerful figure who works behind the scenes, controlling the flow of information and guarding secrets that could change history. Over the years, stories about the Vatican and the Illuminati have sparked interest all over the world. Some believe the two have been in a quiet battle for control, influence, and knowledge. Others say the connection is more intricate, full of mystery, fear, and hidden symbols right in plain sight. Even though much of what's said about the Illuminati is based on rumours and fantasy, there are parts of the story that come from real history, and that's where the mystery begins. The Illuminati were a group that actually existed, started in the late 1700s in Bavaria, which is now part of Germany. It was founded by a man named Adam Weishaupt, who wanted to challenge the power of rulers and religious leaders. His group believed in free thinking and sharing knowledge, which went against the beliefs of powerful groups at the time, including the Catholic Church. The Church saw the Illuminati as dangerous, because their ideas questioned the Church's power and old ways. Because of this, the group had to work in secret, and was later banned by the government. Even though the original Illuminati were small and didn't last long, the name has stuck around. Over time, it's become part of bigger stories about secret societies controlling the world from the shadows. Many of these stories focus on the idea that the Vatican and the Illuminati are either working against each other or are secretly connected behind closed doors. These theories often involve hidden messages in art, secret rituals, or lost knowledge kept secret in the Vatican's hidden archives. Books and movies have helped keep these ideas alive. Stories like Dan Brown's Angels and Demons have added fuel to the mystery, showing a world where the Vatican and the Illuminati are in a secret war. These stories, even though they are made up, use real symbols, places, and historical facts, which makes them seem more believable. They make us wonder what the Vatican knows, and what it might be hiding from the world. Some believe the Church might have even borrowed ideas from groups like the Illuminati and used them in its own way. Others think the Vatican has always worked to silence such groups, to keep its teachings pure and its power strong. While there's no proof of a real partnership between the Vatican and the Illuminati, the idea that they are connected still gets a lot of attention. What's clear is that both the Vatican and the idea of the Illuminati hold a big place in many people's minds. Each of them stands for something hidden, something bigger than we can see. Whether the Vatican worked with the Illuminati, fought against them, or just watched from afar, the mystery remains. And for many, this mystery is what keeps the story alive. The Vatican has always had an important place in world history, but it's not just a religious organization. For centuries, it has quietly worked behind the scenes to keep its influence in politics, money, and world affairs. While the public sees the Vatican as a center of faith and spirituality, there's a lot more going on inside its walls that is hidden from view. At the heart of the Vatican's hidden plans is its desire to keep its power and control, not just over religious matters, but over the wider world too. The Vatican has long been involved in world diplomacy, influencing global events in ways many don't fully understand. It's been said that Vatican leaders often try to shape the course of history, making decisions that could affect nations and governments worldwide. This involvement isn't always open, and the Vatican often prefers to keep its actions behind closed doors. One of the most interesting parts of the Vatican's hidden plans is its control over knowledge. The Church has historically decided what knowledge to share and what to hide. Many of the Vatican's secrets, including lost writings, old texts, and censored historical documents, are kept under lock and key, hidden from the public. These documents and texts are often seen as too dangerous to be made public, as they might question the official stories told by the Church. For centuries, the Vatican has carefully managed its image, making sure that only certain information reached the world. This control over knowledge extends to how the Church has shaped the teachings of Christianity, carefully promoting certain ideas and interpretations while stopping others. The Vatican has made sure that the most controversial or threatening ideas stayed hidden, preventing them from hurting the Church's power and influence. The Vatican's secret intentions also reach into its money matters. It's long been rumoured that the Church controls a lot of wealth, using its money to keep its power both in the religious world and outside of it. The Vatican's finances are largely secret, and there's a lot of talk about how the Church uses its money to influence world events. It's been guessed that the Vatican might be involved in global banking, investments, and even secret money deals not visible to the public. As the Church continues to use its influence in the world, the Vatican's secret intentions remain a source of fascination and guessing. Even though much of what goes on behind the scenes is unknown, it's clear that the Vatican's power isn't just about its religious authority. The Church has worked for centuries to control not only the hearts and minds of its followers, but also to influence the entire world, hiding its true reasons and plans in the shadows. The Vatican has always been seen as a religious institution, but its involvement in money matters is often overlooked. Over the centuries, the Church has gathered a lot of wealth, not just from donations from its followers, but also through investments, property, and other money-making activities. This wealth has allowed the Vatican to keep its power and influence around the world, even though much of the money activity stays hidden from public view. The Vatican isn't just a place of worship, it's also a huge landowner. The Church owns a lot of property all over the world, including churches, buildings, and land that bring in a lot of money. Some of these properties are rented out, while others are used for religious and cultural purposes. This property empire has helped keep the Vatican financially stable for centuries. Besides its property, the Vatican is involved in banking and investments. The Vatican Bank, also known as the Institute for the Works of Religion, handles the Holy See's money. The bank has been the subject of many arguments over the years because of its secrecy and its involvement in various money scandals. Despite its secrecy, the Vatican Bank holds a lot of money and assets, some of which are invested in global markets. These investments provide a steady flow of income that helps fund the Vatican's activities. The Vatican's financial power also extends to its role in world politics. The Church has used its wealth to build relationships with powerful nations and leaders, making sure it has influence in international matters. This financial influence allows the Vatican to protect its interests and promote its goals on the world stage. While the Vatican's political power is often used behind the scenes, its financial strength ensures that it remains an important player in world diplomacy. Much of the Vatican's money dealings are kept from public view, which adds to the mystery around its wealth. There are rumours of hidden accounts and secret financial deals that aren't told to the public. This secrecy has raised questions about how the Vatican uses its money and whether it has been involved in questionable financial practices over the years. Despite the lack of openness, the Vatican's financial power remains a vital part of its overall influence in the world. The Vatican's involvement in financial power is a key part of its ability to maintain control and influence. By managing vast wealth, investing in global markets, and keeping relationships with powerful political leaders, the Vatican makes sure its interests are well protected, even though its financial dealings sometimes remain a mystery. It's clear that the Church's wealth is an important tool for its continued influence in both religious and worldly matters. The Vatican has always had important power, not just through its religious influence, but also through its ability to shape culture and society. One of the main ways it has done this is through its support of the arts. For centuries, the Vatican has been a powerful supporter of the arts, helping artists, architects, and scholars. This support has allowed the Vatican not only to influence the development of art and culture, but also to use these creations to spread its teachings and strengthen its power. During the Renaissance, the Vatican was behind some of the most famous artworks in history. Popes like Julius II and Leo XI were big supporters of artists like Michelangelo and Raphael. These artists created masterpieces that can still be seen today, like the Sistine Chapel ceiling and the frescoes in the Vatican museums. These artworks weren't just for decoration, they served a bigger purpose. The Vatican used them to share its religious messages, show its power, and claim its place in the world. Through these grand works, the Church could show off its wealth, influence, and power. The Vatican's role as a supporter didn't end with the Renaissance. Over the centuries, it continued to support artists, musicians, and thinkers, making sure its influence on culture stayed strong. The Vatican was key in the development of religious music, commissioning works from composers like Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina. It also supported scholars and scientists, though sometimes not without arguments, as seen in its relationship with figures like Galileo Galilei. This support went beyond the arts and sciences. It also played a part in shaping politics and diplomacy, supporting leaders who shared the Church's values. Through its support, the Vatican has been able to guide the course of history in quiet but powerful ways. The art it commissioned, the ideas it supported, and the organisations it upheld have all helped maintain its influence in society. Even though the Vatican's main job is religious, its use of support has allowed it to shape the world in ways that go far beyond its spiritual role. The power of Vatican support has also allowed it to create a lasting legacy. The art and architecture commissioned by the Vatican continue to attract millions of visitors each year, bringing attention and financial support to the Church. The Vatican's collection of art and historical items is one of the most important in the world and remains a symbol of the Church's lasting influence on culture. Even today, the Vatican's power as a supporter continues. It supports various art shows, educational programs, and religious outreach programs. In this way, the Vatican makes sure its presence in the world remains strong, continuing to shape culture and history. Through the power of support, the Vatican has created a lasting legacy that reaches far beyond the walls of its churches. Vatican City is a place rich in beauty and history, but hidden in its grand buildings are messages not always clear to the casual observer. The buildings, statues, and artworks throughout the Vatican aren't just meant to be admired for their beauty. They are full of symbols and meanings that tell a story. Some of these messages were put there on purpose to show the Church's beliefs, values, and power. One of the most famous examples of hidden messages in Vatican architecture is in St. Peter's Basilica. Designed by some of the greatest artists and architects of the Renaissance like Michelangelo and Gian Lorenzo Bernini, the basilica is an amazing architectural work, but if you look closely you'll find it's more than just a place of worship. It's also a symbol of the Vatican's power and influence. Take, for example, the central dome of St. Peter's Basilica. Its design isn't just a feat of engineering, it's meant to show the idea of the Church's power and heaven above it. The dome rises high into the sky, symbolising the connection between God and earth. The entire structure was built to show the greatness of the Catholic faith and its place in the world. It's a powerful reminder of the Church's role in shaping not only religious life but also the political and cultural landscape of Europe. The Vatican itself is designed with care and purpose. If you walk through St. Peter's Square, you'll notice how the architecture guides your movements. The columns surrounding the square create a feeling of protection and safety, welcoming visitors into the heart of the church. The layout of the square, along with the obelisk in the centre, creates a sense of unity and control. These designs weren't just for decoration. They were carefully made to leave an impression on anyone who visited the Vatican. The artworks and sculptures inside the Vatican are also full of hidden meanings. The Sistine Chapel, painted by Michelangelo, is another example of how the Vatican used art to show its power. The famous image of God reaching out to Adam is more than just a beautiful scene. It's a visual representation of the Church's belief in the connection between God and humanity. The entire ceiling tells a story of creation, salvation, and divine power, all meant to strengthen the Church's role as a go-between for God and humanity. Throughout the Vatican, you'll also find smaller symbols and messages built into the architecture, like the use of the number 3 to represent the Holy Trinity, or the frequent depiction of keys symbolizing the Pope's authority. These hidden elements remind us that every part of the Vatican has been designed with a purpose and meaning, from the grandest building to the smallest detail. The hidden messages in the Vatican's architecture tell us a lot about its history and the power it has held for centuries. These symbols have been carefully placed by the architects and artists who worked on the buildings to strengthen the Vatican's influence and its role as the centre of the Catholic faith. As you explore the Vatican, whether in person or in your imagination, take a moment to notice the hidden messages that tell the deeper story of this amazing place. For centuries, the Vatican has played an important role in controlling knowledge, especially knowledge that might have questioned its teachings. The Church has long been a guardian of wisdom, preserving and explaining old texts and religious teachings. But not all knowledge was allowed to spread freely. Some ideas were censored, hidden, or changed to protect the Church's power. The Vatican's control over knowledge is a story that goes back centuries, influencing how people saw the world and their place in it. One of the main ways the Vatican controlled knowledge was through its vast libraries and archives. The Vatican Library, which dates back to the 15th century, holds thousands of manuscripts, books, and documents. These texts are incredibly valuable and contain writings from ancient scholars, philosophers, and theologians. But only a limited number of people were allowed to access these texts. Many of them were kept under lock and key, hidden from public view. The Church carefully controlled who could read these works, often requiring scholars to get permission before studying them. The Vatican's control over knowledge wasn't just about physical books and manuscripts. It extended to how ideas were spread and who got to decide what was true. For centuries, the Church has been the final authority on what could be taught and believed. This power was especially clear during times when new ideas challenged the Church's traditional teachings. Think about the time of great scientists like Galileo Galilei in the 17th century. Galileo's research suggested that the Earth moved around the Sun, not the other way around. This went against the Church's teachings that placed the Earth at the centre of the universe. Because of this, Galileo was condemned by the Church, and his ideas were censored. The Vatican also controlled knowledge by shaping how history was told. Many historical events and figures were ignored or presented in a way that supported the Church's interests. Stories that didn't fit with the Church's teachings were often left out of official documents, including ideas that might have questioned the traditional view of religion or the Vatican's own role in history. For example, many early Christian writings that weren't in line with the Church's teachings were destroyed or hidden. This included texts about Mary Magdalene and other early Christian figures who played important roles but weren't given the same importance in the Bible. Throughout history, the Vatican has also been known for influencing education and intellectual thought. During the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the Church controlled schools and universities in much of Europe. It dictated what could be taught, especially in the fields of science and philosophy. This control helped the Vatican maintain its authority over people's minds. Knowledge that went against the Church's beliefs was often forbidden or censored, and those who dared to teach new ideas could be punished. Even today, the Vatican's control over knowledge still influences how people see religion and history. The Church has vast collections of documents, some of which are still hidden from the public. While many of these texts have been studied, there are still countless pieces of history that remain hidden. The Vatican's influence on knowledge shows us how much big institutions can shape how we see reality and how some truths remain hidden, waiting to come to light. Among the most valuable and ancient Christian manuscripts, the Codex Sinaiticus stands out. It's a Bible copied by hand in the 4th century AD. This amazing document contains the complete New Testament and parts of the Old Testament. Its importance grows even more when we think about its connection to the Vatican and the role the Church played in protecting and studying it. The Codex Sinaiticus was found in the 19th century in St. Catherine's Monastery, located on the slopes of Mount Sinai in Egypt. It was German scholar Konstantin von Tischendorf who found it in 1859. As he researched old sacred texts, Tischendorf immediately understood the manuscript's priceless value. He brought it to Europe, and some parts went to the Vatican for academic study. The Vatican, with its long tradition of guarding sacred texts, played a key role in researching and understanding this ancient document. Even though the Vatican didn't have the complete code at first, its help was very important. After it was found, the Vatican became one of the main places for studying the manuscript and protecting it for the future. The Codex Sinaiticus was split up and sent to various libraries and institutions, including the Vatican Library, which is one of the most famous and oldest in the world. The Vatican carefully studied the manuscript, keeping it safe and protecting it from damage. The Vatican's interest in the Codex Sinaiticus also showed the Church's desire to control the spread of religious knowledge. The manuscript holds important information about the early Church, its rules, and its history. By studying the Codex Sinaiticus, the Vatican gained a deep understanding of how the Bible developed and of early Christian texts. The Vatican, as the highest Christian teaching authority, had a vital interest in understanding the original biblical texts. The content of the manuscript was therefore carefully examined and compared with other Bible versions from that time. A main reason for the Vatican's attention to the Codex Sinaiticus was its possible impact on Church teachings. The manuscript, being one of the oldest complete Bibles, had differences from later editions adopted by the Church. These differences, though not huge, could change how certain passages or teachings were understood. The Vatican's involvement with the Codex Sinaiticus made sure these differences were carefully looked at and explained in light of Church history and theology. Although the Vatican doesn't have the complete Codex Sinaiticus, its help in saving, studying, and understanding this old manuscript is clear. The Codex is still a key tool for researchers, historians, and theologians, shedding light on the roots of the Christian faith. The Vatican's careful handling of the Codex Sinaiticus shows its bigger role as a guardian and interpreter of religious knowledge, a role that has shaped how Christianity is understood through the centuries. Deep within the Vatican are hidden vaults rarely open to the public, guarding some of the world's most mysterious and priceless documents. It's said that these vaults hold treasures of knowledge, ancient manuscripts, and sacred relics from centuries past. What lies inside these vaults is mostly unknown, as access is strictly controlled by Vatican authorities. The mysterious Vatican vaults have led to countless guesses and theories over time, sparking the imagination of those who wonder what secrets might be hidden there. The Vatican itself has always been shrouded in mystery. It's not just the heart of the Roman Catholic Church, but also a powerful institution with endless influence. Through the centuries, it has collected a huge amount of documents, artworks, and religious artifacts. Some of these treasures are shown in public places like the Vatican museums, while others remain hidden in these secret vaults, only accessible to a select few. Among the items believed to be kept in the Vatican vaults are documents that could change how we see history. Some are thought to date back to the beginnings of Christianity. They could offer answers to questions about the roots of faith, about the lives of early saints, and about the events that shaped the Church's development. Some even think that the Vatican keeps very old texts that could reveal hidden teachings or beliefs that have been suppressed or lost over time. The secrecy surrounding these vaults has led to many theories. Some say the Vatican is purposely hiding information that could challenge the Church's official teachings. There are rumours of documents that could go against established religious beliefs or offer a different view of Jesus Christ's life, early Christian leaders, or the role of women in the Church. These theories are fueled by the fact that the Vatican has kept much of its most valuable information hidden for centuries. Others think the vaults might hold documents that could explain the relationship between the Church and world events. The Vatican has always been deeply involved in world politics, and some think its vaults might contain important documents about political alliances, conflicts, and decisions made in secret. These documents could reveal the Vatican's role in shaping history during wars, revolutions, and diplomatic talks. Despite the secrecy, the Vatican has occasionally opened its vaults to allow academic studies. The Vatican's secret archives, part of these mysterious vaults, are accessible to historians but only under very strict conditions. Even then, only a small part of the documents is available for review. The rest remains secret, inaccessible to anyone except those chosen by the Vatican. The Vatican vaults continue to symbolize power and secrecy. They have the potential to reveal many of history's most important mysteries. As the Church continues to protect these treasures, the question remains, what secrets are truly hidden in the mysterious Vatican vaults, and why are they so carefully guarded? Throughout history, the Vatican has been deeply involved in controlling what people believe and understand about Christianity. One of the most important ways this has happened is by suppressing certain texts, especially Gnostic writings. Gnosticism was an old belief system that was different from the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church. These texts offered different views on Christianity and suggested ideas that the Church saw as dangerous. As a result, the Vatican has over time systematically hidden or destroyed many of these ancient writings. Gnostic texts were written by early Christians who believed that salvation came through secret knowledge, or gnosis, instead of through the faith-based teachings promoted by the Church. These writings offered different interpretations of the Bible and other Christian teachings. They often showed Jesus as a figure who gave secret knowledge to his followers, offering a path to enlightenment and understanding beyond the teachings of the traditional Church. One of the most famous Gnostic texts is the Gospel of Thomas, a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus that doesn't match the official Gospels. In this text, Jesus talks about hidden knowledge and a more personal inner relationship with the divine. This was very different from the more structured institutional approach to faith that the Vatican was building at the time. The Vatican's reaction to Gnostic texts wasn't just to ignore them, but to actively suppress them. During the early centuries of Christianity, as the Church was gaining power, it tried to define a single set of beliefs that all Christians should follow. The rise of Gnostic texts was a direct challenge to this unified vision. The Church wanted to keep its own authority, and allowing opposing ideas to spread would have weakened its control. Many Gnostic writings were lost or destroyed. Some were buried in the Egyptian sands only to be rediscovered in the 20th century, like the famous Nag Hammadi library, which contains a wealth of Gnostic texts. These discoveries have given scholars a new perspective on the variety of early Christianity and the different paths people once considered taking. The Vatican's suppression of these texts raises important questions. Why did the Church feel so threatened by these writings? What secrets could they reveal about the early Christian Church and its beliefs? As these texts slowly become known to the public, we are starting to see a different picture of early Christianity emerge, one that is much more complex and diverse than what the Vatican has traditionally taught. The suppression of Gnostic texts is a powerful reminder of how knowledge and faith have always been controlled. The Vatican's efforts to silence these alternative voices reflect a desire to protect its own authority and to keep some truths hidden. As these texts are discovered and studied, they continue to offer a new way to understand the history of Christianity, challenging the traditional stories passed down through the centuries. The Vatican has long been linked with secrecy, and its role in preserving and guarding secrets is one of the most interesting parts of its history. Over the centuries, the Vatican has guarded hidden knowledge and documents that could potentially change how we understand history, religion, and even the very foundations of Christianity. This desire to protect certain truths, or sometimes to keep them secret, is a key part of the Vatican's identity. One of the most famous examples of the Vatican's secret nature is the Vatican Secret Archives. The name itself brings to mind a place full of hidden knowledge, and in fact, it holds countless documents, letters, and records not available to the public. For many years, access to these archives was very limited, and only a select few, mainly scholars, were allowed to look at their contents. The reason for this secrecy has led to many guesses. Some believe that the documents inside might reveal uncomfortable truths, like the Vatican's involvement in certain historical events, while others suspect there are hidden messages and ancient secrets carefully guarded. Many rumours circulate about the nature of these secrets. Some believe the Vatican holds documents that describe in detail the true history of early Christianity, including different views on Jesus and his teachings. These alternative beliefs, like those found in Gnostic texts, could offer a very different understanding of Christian history than what the Church teaches. Others suggest that the Vatican holds evidence of ancient religious relics, powerful artifacts, and even hidden places purposely kept secret from the public. The Vatican's involvement in secrets isn't just limited to the archives. Throughout the centuries, stories have circulated about the Church's role in powerful secret societies. For example, some believe the Vatican has been connected with Freemasonry or the Illuminati, two secret groups often linked with hidden knowledge and global influence. While there is little concrete evidence of direct involvement, the idea of secret societies and the Vatican's silent influence over them has fascinated generations. The Vatican's control over knowledge and its role in secrets have shaped much of its power. By controlling what is shared with the world, the Vatican has been able to guide and shape public opinion. The secrecy surrounding certain issues has allowed the Church to maintain its authority and influence over millions of people. But why does the Vatican hide so much? Is it simply to protect its own reputation? Or is there something more at stake? Is there a deeper truth that could shake the very foundations of the Church? These are questions that remain unanswered, but the secrecy surrounding the Vatican only adds to the mystery. As time passes and new documents are discovered, the world might one day find out the true extent of the secrets guarded for centuries. Until then, the Vatican remains a powerful force guarding knowledge, history, and secrets with unmatched authority. The Vatican is not just a place of religious worship, it is also a place full of symbols and hidden messages. These messages, often found in public spaces, might seem like simple artworks or architectural designs, but many believe they are much more than that. The Vatican has a long tradition of symbolism in its buildings, paintings, and sculptures, and these symbols can hold deeper meanings that aren't immediately clear to the casual observer. One of the most famous examples of hidden messages is found in St. Peter's Square. Looking at the layout of the square from above, you'll notice that the ground is shaped like a giant keyhole. Some believe this shape is not accidental. Keys have long been a symbol of the Church's power, especially the keys of St. Peter. These represent the authority to bind and loose on earth, as Christ gave to the Apostle Peter. The keyhole shape is a subtle reminder of the control and influence the Vatican has over the Catholic world and beyond. It's a symbol that might be hidden in plain sight, inviting the observer to think about the deeper meaning of authority, power, and the gates of heaven. Another fascinating example of hidden messages can be seen in the artworks that decorate the many Vatican buildings. One of the most famous artists commissioned by the Vatican was Michelangelo, who painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. At first glance, the artwork might seem like a celebration of biblical stories, but many believe Michelangelo included deeper, more personal symbols in his paintings. Some scholars suggest that Michelangelo's depiction of the creation of Adam, with the image of God's finger reaching out to touch Adam, might represent a deeper truth about human connection to the divine. Others suggest that the artwork includes hidden codes that only those in the know can truly understand. Even the architecture of the Vatican is believed to hold hidden messages. The Vatican houses some of the most magnificent and imposing buildings in the world, but many of these structures have been carefully designed with symbolic intentions. The arrangement of certain structures, the shape of windows, and even the use of light all play a role in conveying messages. Some believe these messages are meant for those who know how to read them, to those who understand their symbols and their meaning. Throughout the centuries, the Vatican has carefully placed these symbols in public spaces, making them visible to millions of people, but they may not be fully understood by most. Intentionally or not, these symbols have the power to guide people's thoughts, beliefs, and even actions. For some, the presence of these hidden messages reinforces the feeling that the Vatican is more than meets the eye. A mystery hangs over these symbols. What do they truly mean? And why have they been so carefully placed in the Vatican's public spaces? As with many things concerning the Vatican, the answers may be hidden just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. The Papal States were a vast region of central Italy, ruled directly by the Pope for over 1,000 years. For many, the history of the Papal States remains a mystery. How did the Pope come to rule such an extensive area? And why did it come to an end? These questions have puzzled historians and sparked great interest, especially considering the vast influence the Papal States had on the Vatican and the Catholic Church as a whole. The Papal States began to take shape during the 8th century, around the year 773. The lands were granted to the Pope by the Frankish king Pepin the Short in exchange for papal support. This agreement marked the beginning of a unique and powerful political entity, giving the Pope both spiritual and earthly authority. The territory stretched across much of what is now central Italy, including the cities of Rome, Ravenna, and Bologna, and for centuries the Pope ruled these lands as a sovereign. The Papal States were a source of power, wealth, and control for the Vatican. It allowed the Pope to influence politics, maintain armies, and even engage in diplomatic relations with other nations. In many ways, the Papal States helped make the Vatican the powerful institution it is today. This link between the Church and political power raised questions over time. Should the Pope be both a spiritual and political leader, or should the two roles remain separate? Some critics argue that the presence of the Papal States led to corruption and unnecessary entanglements between the Church and worldly power. Over the centuries, the Papal States continued to play a significant role in shaping Italian and European history. But in the 19th century, things began to change. The Italian unification movement, which sought to unite Italy's various city-states and kingdoms, posed a direct challenge to the Papal States. In 1870, after years of political conflict, the Kingdom of Italy officially took control of Rome and much of the surrounding territory. This brought an end to the Papal States and left the Vatican with only the small area of territory around St. Peter's Basilica, now known as Vatican City. The loss of the Papal States was a severe blow to the Vatican's power. It forced the Church to adapt to its new role in the world. Although the Vatican had lost its territory and political control, it maintained its spiritual authority, which endures to this day. Reviewing the events of the Papal States means recalling the deep ties between the Vatican and political authority throughout the centuries. These ties forged the fate of the Church, but the lingering effect of those years of dominance remains hazy, and how the Vatican's legacy may still influence its current decisions. The enigma of the Papal States persists as the Vatican carefully guards its chronology and its arcana, inviting us to wonder what function these lost domains may have played in the broader history of ecclesiastical ascendancy. The Vatican's ascendancy and scientific achievements represents an intricate and captivating history, dotted with promoters and detractors. Throughout time, the Church has maintained an imposing presence in numerous fields, including science. For much of the Middle Ages, the Vatican held significant importance in protecting and advancing knowledge. Dedicated religious figures and scholars in convents and ecclesiastical academies often represented those who examined ancient writings, translating them into Latin, thus allowing the transmission of knowledge across eras. In the early days of the Church, there was a strong link between religion and science. Many early scientists belonged to the clergy, such as priests and religious, who saw no contradiction between their devotion and scientific activity. The Church held that scrutinizing the natural world was a means to understand the magnificence of divine creation. During the Renaissance, for example, between the 15th and 16th centuries, several church-backed scholars made contributions to relevant discoveries in astronomy, medicine, and anatomy. The Vatican was also a significant patron of the arts, financially supporting the works of great artists and intellectuals like Leonardo da Vinci and Galileo Galilei, who helped shape contemporary science. However, this relationship between the Vatican and science was not always smooth. One of the most celebrated and debated episodes occurred in the early 17th century with the trial against Galileo Galilei. Galileo, an astronomer and physicist, defended the idea that the Earth revolved around the Sun based on his own telescopic observations. This idea contrasted with the ecclesiastical teachings of the time, which considered the Earth the centre of the universe. Galileo was tried by the Inquisition in 1633 and forced to recant his views. The Vatican's hostility towards Galileo's discoveries was a dark chapter in the Church's relationship with science. Despite this discord, the Vatican's role in science did not end then. Throughout the ages, the Church began to modify its stance on various scientific issues. In the 19th century, Pope Pius IX, along with other ecclesiastical leaders, began to promote the study of natural sciences. The Vatican established the Specola Vaticana in 1931, an initiative aimed at supporting scientific research and demonstrating ecclesiastical interest in science. The Specola Vaticana is still operating today and is one of the oldest astronomical research institutions in the world. In modern times, the Vatican has committed to embracing scientific advancements. The Church has acknowledged the importance of modern scientific achievements, including evolutionary theory. Once a point of contention, in 1996, Pope John Paul II publicly acknowledged the legitimacy of evolution as a scientific theory, signalling a significant transformation in the ecclesiastical stance. The Vatican's influence on scientific achievements is a story of tension and reconciliation. While there have been moments of opposition, the Church has also played a fundamental role in supporting scientific research. Currently, the Vatican continues to engage with science, encouraging research and debate that explore the intersection between faith and knowledge. This complex history invites us to reflect on the ways the Vatican's influence has shaped the world's understanding of the natural world. The Vatican's response to modernity has been discreet and often cautious. As the world changed over the centuries, the Church has had to face innovative concepts and challenges that sometimes clashed with its established teachings. This path to modernity has not always been easy for the Vatican, but it has shaped its role in the world today. In early times, the Vatican's central concern was preserving dominance over religious teachings and the interpretation of faith. The Church was considered the authority on all matters related to spirituality and morality. However, between the 19th and 20th centuries, the world began to transform rapidly. Advances in science, technology, and philosophy presented innovative ways of conceiving the universe, humanity, and even God. Concepts like evolution and modern philosophy challenged deeply held beliefs about creation and the nature of human existence. In response, the Vatican adopted a defensive stance, firmly adhering to established views and sometimes opposing innovative concepts. For example, in the 19th century, the Church categorically rejected the evolutionary theory proposed by Charles Darwin. The Vatican considered evolution a challenge to the biblical account of creation. The tension between scientific advancement and religious tradition led to debates and controversies that lasted for many years. Despite these challenges, the Vatican was also aware of the need to confront modernity in some way. The Church recognized that it could not ignore the world around it and remain relevant. This became particularly evident in the mid-19th century when the Vatican began to move towards modernization. In 1962, Pope John XXIII convened the Second Vatican Council, a crucial event in the history of the Church. The Council's goal was to integrate the Church into the modern world while preserving its essential teachings. The Council determined numerous changes, including efforts to improve relations with other religions, a more accessible approach to social issues, and a shift towards a more inclusive tone in ecclesiastical practices. For example, the Church began to allow religious services to be held in local languages rather than exclusively in Latin. This was seen as a step towards greater accessibility for believers. The Vatican's response to modernity was not limited to modifying its teachings, but also involved its role in world politics. With increasing global interconnectedness, the Vatican had to adapt to innovative ways of interacting with governments, social movements, and cultural transformations. Pope John Paul II, who became Pope in 1978, played a significant role in this. He fought for human rights, contributed to the end of communism in Eastern Europe, and reached out to other religions, fostering interreligious dialogue. Currently, the Vatican continues to balance tradition with the needs of modernity. The Church remains a global institution with influence in numerous fields, but it has also embraced societal transformations such as advocating for social justice, environmental protection, and peace. The Vatican's response to modernity is ongoing as it seeks to remain true to its history while addressing the needs and challenges of the contemporary world. The Second Vatican Council, which started in 1962, was one of the most important events in the history of the Catholic Church. Called by Pope John XXIII, the Council was an attempt to modernize the Church and adapt it to the contemporary world. It was a response to the transformations and challenges the Church faced in the modern era, especially in areas like social justice, religion, and culture. Before the Second Vatican Council, the Church was very traditional. Religious services were held in Latin, and the relationship between the Church and the world was quite distant. There was a strong emphasis on the authority of the clergy, and ordinary members of the Church, who were not directly involved in ecclesiastical matters, had little participation. The Second Vatican Council aimed to open up the Church and allow it to connect with the people, making it more inclusive and less rigid. One of the main changes resulting from the Council was the decision to allow Mass to be celebrated in the local language instead of Latin. This was a huge change because it meant the congregation could understand the words spoken during the service. It also allowed people to feel more connected to the ritual and to the Church as a whole. Instead of hearing a foreign language they didn't understand, they could now participate more fully in the experience. Another important achievement of the Second Vatican Council was the push for the Church to be more open to other religions. Before the Council, there was a strong belief that the Catholic faith was the only true path to salvation. The Second Vatican Council, however, recognized that other religions could hold value and that Catholics should interact with people of different beliefs with respect and understanding. This led to improved relations with Jews, Muslims, and other Christian denominations. The Council also emphasized the importance of social justice and the Church's role in addressing the world's problems. Pope John XXIII was deeply concerned about poverty, war, and the rights of the poor and oppressed. The Second Vatican Council called on the Church to take an active role in promoting peace, equality, and human dignity. The idea of the Church as a force for good in the world was central to the changes made during the Council. In addition to these changes, the Second Vatican Council also sought to renew the role of lay people in the Church, encouraging them to take on greater responsibilities and be more active in their communities. This was an important step in making the Church less hierarchical and more inclusive, as it recognized the importance of everyone, not just the clergy. The Second Vatican Council was a turning point for the Catholic Church. It has helped modernize the Church's teachings and practices, making them more relevant to the modern world. The transformations brought about by the Second Vatican Council continue to shape the Church, even today, helping it remain a powerful and compassionate force in the world while staying true to its roots. The Swiss Guard is one of the most celebrated and secretive bodies of the Vatican. This small group of soldiers is responsible for protecting the Pope and the Vatican, but their duties go far beyond simple security. They are custodians of the Vatican's most sensitive areas and secrets. For centuries, they have been entrusted with some of the most important and hidden passages in Church history. The Swiss Guard was founded in 1506 when Pope Julius II requested soldiers from Switzerland, known for their strength and loyalty. Over time, this small group of guards has become a symbol of both the Vatican's power and its connection to a rich and mysterious history. Currently, the Swiss Guard is still active, but its role has evolved. While they continue to protect the Pope and the Vatican, their responsibilities also include guarding the secrets hidden within the Vatican's walls. The most private areas of the Vatican are often locked away and hidden from the public. Deep inside the Vatican archives, there are tons of documents and records that the outside world never sees. The Swiss Guard helps protect these areas, making sure documents are kept safe and only authorized people can get to them. Many of these documents hold information about the Church's history, politics, and ties to other powerful organizations. Some of these records are so sensitive they've been sealed for centuries, with their contents known only to a select few. The Swiss Guard's job isn't just about physical security, it's also about keeping secret what goes on behind closed doors at the Vatican. They help guard the Vatican's treasures, from priceless artifacts to hidden knowledge. They are the silent protectors who make sure the delicate balance of power and secrecy within the Vatican stays intact. While the Swiss Guard's role is often seen as ceremonial, it's more than just a symbol of tradition. Their work demands vigilance and discretion. They are tasked with protecting some of the most powerful and influential people in the world, the Pope and the leaders of the Catholic Church, along with some of the most important secrets in history. Swiss Guard members live in the Vatican and are trained to keep an eye on everything that happens within the city-state. The Swiss Guard's work is essential to preserving the Vatican's secrets. They are often the first line of defense against those who seek to expose or misuse the Church's confidential information. Their role is a silent force, as they stand at the gates of history, guarding the many mysteries the Vatican has kept hidden from the world for centuries. While many focus on the outward symbols of the Vatican's power, the Swiss Guard's role shows that sometimes the most important work is done behind the scenes, where silence is protection. They guard secrets that could change everything we know about the Church. The Vatican archives are one of the most mysterious and influential collections of documents in the world, hidden from public view. These archives hold secrets that have shaped the course of history. For centuries, the Church has kept detailed records of everything from the smallest parish matters to world-changing events, all factors that have influenced not only the Catholic faith but also politics, art, and science. The Vatican archives are a treasure trove of information, containing millions of documents spanning centuries. These documents include letters, manuscripts, and official papers dating back to the 5th century. The documents cover a wide range of topics, from the inner workings of the Church to the Vatican's interactions with kings, emperors, and other powerful figures. Some of these documents are considered so important that they are kept in special rooms with strict access rules, carefully guarded to prevent them from being lost or tampered with. Throughout history, these archives have played a critical role in shaping political and social events. Many decisions made by powerful leaders and kings were influenced by the Vatican's advice or intervention. For example, during the Renaissance, popes used their influence to decide the fate of entire nations, often determining who would rule or what alliances would be formed. The documents of these decisions are still kept in the Vatican archives, and they hold clues about how the Church influenced the world's biggest political events. One of the most important fields where the archives had an impact is science. During the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the Vatican played a key role in shaping what scientific ideas could be shared. Some of the greatest thinkers, like Galileo, found themselves in conflict with the Church. Galileo's support for the heliocentric theory, the idea that the Earth revolved around the Sun, was considered a dangerous idea at the time. The Vatican archives contain the documents of his trial and other similar cases that show how science and faith often clashed. However, these documents also reveal how the Vatican gradually embraced groundbreaking ideas, shaping the scientific discoveries we take for granted today. Besides politics and science, the Vatican archives have influenced the arts. Many of the great works of art from the Renaissance, like Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling, were sponsored by the Vatican. The Church's influence on artists and their works is well documented in the archives, showing how religion and creativity have been intertwined for centuries. These documents also contain detailed accounts of the patronage system, where popes and cardinals funded and promoted artists to create masterpieces that reflected the Church's power and glory. Despite their great importance, the archives are not fully accessible to the public. Only scholars and researchers with special permission can access the most sensitive parts of the collection. This secrecy has led to rumours and speculation about what might be hidden inside. Some believe the archives contain documents that could rewrite history, revealing forgotten truths or long-buried secrets that the Vatican has kept hidden for centuries. During the Age of Discovery, the Vatican played an important role in the discovery of new worlds. It was a time when brave explorers set sail for faraway lands, looking for new territories and trade routes. But behind the adventures and discoveries, the Vatican's influence was quietly shaping how these new lands were understood and interacted with. The Church, with its vast resources and connections, had a fundamental impact on how world exploration was viewed through the lens of religion and power. One of the most important moments of this period was the signing of the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494. This agreement between Spain and Portugal, backed by the Pope, divided the world between the two countries. The Vatican granted Spain the right to explore and conquer the Americas, while Portugal was assigned the route east toward Asia. This was an extraordinary exercise of power by the Church, as it essentially decided who would rule new lands and what territories would be controlled by European nations. The Pope's authority over the world's oceans was something few could have imagined at the time, but it helped lay the groundwork for centuries of exploration and colonization. When explorers reached new lands, the Vatican's influence wasn't limited to just political or territorial aspects. The Church had a strong interest in spreading Christianity in these newly discovered places. Catholic missionaries travelled alongside the explorers, trying to convert indigenous populations to the Christian faith. These missionaries played a crucial role in shaping the cultural and religious landscape of the Americas, Africa, and Asia. The Vatican's mission to spread Christianity wasn't just about faith. It was also about gaining power, dominance, and influence over these new territories. In many cases, the Church worked closely with European governments, helping to shape the future of the world through a combination of religion and empire. The Vatican also kept accurate records of the discoveries made during that period. These documents, now preserved in the Vatican archives, contain fascinating details about the encounters between Europeans and the indigenous populations they met. They show how the Church viewed these new lands and their people, often through a lens of superiority. Sometimes the Vatican gave instructions on how to treat indigenous populations, including whether they were worthy of conversion. This complex relationship between exploration, religion, and colonialism is hidden in the Vatican archives and continues to spark debates about the morality of these actions. Even as the world changed and new ideas emerged, the Vatican continued to help shape the course of exploration. The discovery of new worlds was seen not just as a geographical conquest, but also as a way to extend the Church's influence across the globe. The Vatican's involvement in the Age of Discovery reminds us that history is often written by those in power and that the Church's role in shaping the modern world cannot be overlooked. Its decisions in this period laid the foundation for the global influence it would continue to wield for centuries to come. The Vatican's influence goes far beyond the Church's walls and its historical events. In fact, it has had a hidden impact on pop culture, shaping stories and themes in ways many might not even imagine. From movies and books to art and music, the Vatican's mysteries and secrets have inspired countless works of fiction, often blending real history with imaginative storytelling. One of the most famous examples of this influence is the novel The Da Vinci Code, written by Dan Brown in 2003. This book, which was a global hit, explores hidden secrets within the Vatican, suggesting that the Church has concealed important truths about the life of Jesus Christ. Although the story is fictional, it has sparked intense curiosity about the Vatican's power and influence, prompting people to dig deeper into its legacy and the mysteries it might hide. The novel's success also led to a popular film adaptation, which continued to captivate audiences worldwide. The Vatican's influence can also be found in many other forms of pop culture. Movies like Angels and Demons, another adaptation of a Dan Brown novel, explore the Vatican's secretive side and its connection to powerful organizations like the Illuminati. These stories suggest that the Vatican is not just a religious institution, but a center of political intrigue filled with hidden agendas and dangerous secrets. While the plots are fictional, they reflect a long-standing fascination with the Church's role in history and its potential for secrecy and dominance. TV shows, books, and even video games often use the Vatican as a backdrop for stories of conspiracy, power struggles, and hidden knowledge. The idea that the Vatican holds ancient texts or forbidden knowledge has inspired countless thrillers and mysteries. Whether it's a secretive society or a dark historical truth, the Vatican remains a symbol of power and secrecy in modern storytelling. The Vatican's hidden impact on pop culture goes beyond books and movies. In the world of art, too, the Church's influence is evident. The Vatican has long been a patron of the arts, commissioning works from some of history's greatest artists like Michelangelo and Raphael. These artists have created masterpieces that continue to shape how we see the world today. The Sistine Chapel, with its splendid ceiling painted by Michelangelo, is one of the most famous works of art ever created. It's not just a religious symbol, but a representation of the Church's lasting influence on culture and history. In music too, the Vatican's influence is felt. The Gregorian chants echoing through the Vatican halls have shaped the sound of Western religious music. These chants, with their deep and soothing tones, remain part of popular depictions of the Church and its ceremonies in film and television. Through these works of art and fiction, the Vatican continues to captivate the imaginations of people around the world. Its hidden history and the mysteries surrounding it continue to draw attention, whether through books, movies, or music. The Vatican's hidden impact on pop culture reminds us how powerful and enduring its influence is, even in the modern world. The Vatican's influence extends far beyond the bounds of Catholicism, reaching into many of the world's religions. As the seat of the Catholic Church, it plays an important role in shaping not only Catholic doctrine, but also the broader landscape of Christian thought. But its influence isn't limited to Christianity alone. The Vatican has had an impact on religions worldwide, influencing how they perceive each other and how they have evolved over time. Christianity is divided into many branches, and the Vatican holds the most power within the Roman Catholic Church. With over 1 billion members worldwide, the Vatican's teachings have a direct influence on the lives of millions of people. Decisions made by the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, influence not only religious practices but also the lives of many people. His role in interpreting Christian teachings on morality, ethics, and social issues helps shape the views of Catholics worldwide. The Vatican also plays a key role in relations between different Christian denominations. Although the Catholic Church is the largest, there are also Protestant and Eastern Orthodox Christians. For centuries there have been tensions between these branches of Christianity, and the Vatican has often found itself at the centre of controversies. However, in more recent times, there has been a growing focus on ecumenism, an effort to unite different Christian groups. The Vatican has taken steps to promote dialogue and understanding, encouraging Christians to come together in their common beliefs, even if they differ on some theological points. Beyond the Christian sphere, the Vatican's impact is evident in its relationships with the planet's major spiritual traditions. Over time, the Holy See has embarked on a path of interreligious dialogue with Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, and Hindus, to name a few. These exchanges have often revolved around shared principles, such as the aspiration for peace, fairness, and human solidarity. Vatican leaders have worked tirelessly to break down barriers between different religious worlds, fostering mutual respect and understanding. The Holy See has also spoken out on the issue of freedom of worship, reaffirming the fundamental right of every person to follow their own convictions without suffering violence. This principle resonates powerfully in many regions of the world, especially where minority communities face abuses. The Vatican's commitment to protecting religious freedom helps define how different religions coexist in contemporary societies, encouraging political powers to ensure the free exercise of spirituality for all. Not only that, the Holy See's work has sometimes brought about transformations in other religious traditions as well. To cite one case, its reflections on social issues, including the place of women in religious structures, have fueled cross-cutting confrontations and discussions across many faiths. Vatican positions on issues such as family planning, marital union, and family ties have impacted the internal conversations of various religious movements, even beyond Catholic borders. Through its initiatives and its teaching authority, the Vatican has assumed a decisive role in shaping the global religious landscape. Its presence has been felt not exclusively among Catholic faithful, but among believers of all spiritual orientations. Vatican initiatives to foster dialogue, freedom of worship, and address planetary challenges have left an indelible mark on the ways religions interact and on individual practices of faith. The Vatican's role in international diplomacy is often underestimated, but it is one of the most important aspects of its influence on the world stage. Although it is a small independent state entity, the Holy See possesses an extraordinary ability to guide international dynamics through its diplomatic action. The Holy See, the official name of the Vatican in the diplomatic sphere, manages a widespread network of representations called apostolic nunciatures in almost all nations. This allows the Holy See to operate even where its religious authority might be limited, enabling it to participate in global diplomacy with remarkable efficiency. The main instrument of Vatican diplomacy lies in its ability to dialogue with state administrations, international bodies, and other religious organizations. The Pontiff, as head of the Catholic Church, holds a unique position that combines spiritual guidance with moral authority. This ensures the Holy See a forum to speak out on planetary issues such as fundamental rights, peacemaking, fairness, and the protection of the poor. The papal voice is frequently raised to call for harmony in areas devastated by conflict and brutality. His calls for compassion and hope have left a deep mark on international debates. After World War II, the Vatican played an essential role in supporting peacemaking and rebuilding ties between nations. The Cold War represented a particularly difficult phase for global diplomacy, but the Holy See helped mend the fractures between East and West. Despite its Western location, the Vatican strove to promote dialogue with the communist sphere through unofficial diplomatic channels. The Holy See helped ease tensions between the Soviet Union and the United States. Vatican influence also manifested itself in the United Nations, where it regularly intervenes on behalf of the poor, the excluded, and those suffering the consequences of conflicts. The Vatican's commitment to global diplomacy is rooted in the conviction of the common good and the promotion of human dignity. This includes the battle against the oppression of individuals or communities, environmental protection, and the commitment to defending life from its beginning to its natural end. Vatican diplomatic efforts aim not only to promote the interests of the Catholic Church, but also to contribute to the common good of all humanity. An emblematic case of Vatican diplomatic success was its contribution to the negotiations that led to the end of apartheid in South Africa. The pontiff at the time, John Paul II, strongly condemned the system of racial segregation and, through his authority, helped push for change. Similarly, the Holy See has striven for peace in the Middle East, calling for dialogue between Israel and Palestine and offering its support to facilitate meetings. The Vatican's role in global diplomacy continues to transform as new challenges emerge on the international stage, whether it's supporting refugee protection, denouncing climate change, or fighting for global peace. Vatican diplomatic reach remains a vital force in shaping the future of the planet. Its ability to use moral authority and peaceful dialogue continues to make it a significant player in global relations. The Vatican's relationship with the search for truth is complex and fascinating. For centuries, the Catholic Church has been considered the guardian of spiritual truths, guiding millions of souls through its teachings. However, at the same time, the Vatican has frequently been at the centre of debates about hidden knowledge and concealed truths. The Church has carefully watched over the flow of information, sometimes hiding certain truths, while encouraging believers to seek spiritual enlightenment and understanding. The Vatican's role in the pursuit of truth is shaped by its belief in the importance of faith. For the Church, truth is closely tied to divine revelation, and much of its teachings are based on the idea that God's truth is shown through the Bible, the teachings of Jesus Christ, and church traditions. The Vatican, the spiritual heart of Catholicism, has always stressed that seeking truth involves more than just being curious. It's a spiritual journey that should be guided by faith and humility. However, there's another layer to this search for truth. Over time, the Vatican has had a complicated relationship with the idea of uncovering hidden knowledge. Throughout history, there have been many times when the Church has been slow to accept certain truths, especially when they went against its established teachings. The most famous example is the case of Galileo Galilei in the early 17th century. Galileo's belief in the heliocentric theory that the Earth revolved around the Sun was seen as heresy by the Vatican. His work challenged the Church's teachings, which placed Earth at the centre of the universe. Galileo was put on trial by the Inquisition and forced to say he was wrong. The Vatican's reaction to Galileo is just one example of the tension between faith and scientific discovery. Over the centuries, the Church has sometimes had to deal with new ideas that challenged its understanding of the world, and while it has embraced many scientific advancements, it has also suppressed others, especially when they threatened traditional teachings that had been key to Catholic doctrine for centuries. This has led to accusations that the Vatican hasn't always been open to the full pursuit of truth, especially when it comes to areas of science, history, and philosophy that challenge religious beliefs. At the same time, the Vatican has also been a centre of knowledge. Throughout history, the Church has been a major supporter of art, science, and learning. Many of history's brightest minds, including some of the most influential scientists, philosophers, and theologians, were deeply connected to the Vatican. The Vatican archives hold centuries of knowledge, much of which has yet to be fully explored or revealed. In these hidden vaults are thousands of documents that could hold the secrets of history, including lost texts, suppressed ideas, and forgotten stories. The search for truth at the Vatican is ongoing. Today, the Church has taken steps to open its archives to scholars and researchers, allowing them to explore documents that were kept secret for centuries. This openness shows a change in the Vatican's attitude towards knowledge and truth. The Vatican is starting to realize that understanding the past and uncovering truth is an important part of its mission, not just for history's sake, but for the future's sake. The Vatican's pursuit of truth is still changing. As new discoveries are made, the Church must figure out how to fit these new ideas into its teachings while staying true to its faith. The journey to uncover the hidden truths of the Vatican's past, its archives, and its role in history is still a story that hasn't been fully written. The search for truth, both spiritual and intellectual, remains one of the most lasting mysteries surrounding the Vatican. The lasting mystery of the Vatican lies in the secrets that are still hidden within its walls today. Despite centuries of exploration, research, and occasional leaks, there are still many questions about the Vatican that remain unanswered. Some of these secrets may have been lost to history, while others are closely guarded by those who understand their importance. The Vatican, with all its grandeur and power, continues to hold on to its mysteries, leaving many to wonder what truths are still hidden. One of the most interesting parts of the Vatican's mystery is its archives. These vast and ancient collections of documents have been the subject of much curiosity and speculation. Some believe that the Vatican holds documents from early Christian history that could completely change everything we know about the Church. Others think the archives may contain proof of events and people that have been hidden from the public eye for centuries. These archives, however, are not easy to access. Scholars can only see a small part of the documents, and many are kept under strict watch. The secrecy around them only adds to the allure of the Vatican's hidden knowledge. The Vatican's role in keeping and controlling knowledge is a big part of its mystery. For centuries, it has been the guardian of religious and historical truths. However, it has also been responsible for suppressing certain ideas and destroying documents. This dual nature makes the Vatican a place of both sacred revelations and hidden motives. In a world where information is constantly shared, the Vatican stands as a reminder that some truths are hidden, waiting to be discovered. This mystery is also tied to the Vatican's influence in the world. The Church has been a powerful force in shaping not only religious faith, but also the course of history. It has played a role in politics, art, science, and culture, leaving a legacy that is both impressive and complex. And yet, despite its undeniable influence, the Vatican remains an institution that keeps much of its inner workings secret. It's a place of power, but also of secrecy, where decisions are made behind closed doors, and the truth isn't always clear to the public. There's also the question of the Vatican's role in past and present global events. While it's a religious institution, the Vatican has long been involved in diplomacy and politics, often in ways that aren't well known. The Church has kept a delicate balance between its spiritual mission and its political influence, and this balance has allowed it to remain a powerful entity for centuries. The Vatican's ability to keep such control over its public image while operating behind the scenes only adds to the air of mystery around it. The lasting mystery of the Vatican reflects its long and storied history. It's a place where past and present meet, where sacred traditions are kept, and where secrets are hidden from the world. In time, more questions will surely arise, and perhaps more secrets will come to light. But for now, the Vatican remains a place where the lines between truth and mystery continue to blur. The journey to uncover its hidden truths is ongoing, and as new generations seek answers, the Vatican will continue to be a central figure in the ongoing search for knowledge and understanding. As time goes on, the future of the Vatican's secrets remains uncertain. For centuries, the Vatican has guarded its mysteries, keeping its archives, its vaults, and its delicate documents safe. Many believe that hidden within these secret walls is information that could change how we understand history, religion, and the very foundations of faith. And yet, despite many investigations, much of this knowledge has remained secret. Looking ahead, there are several key questions about the Vatican's secrets that remain unanswered, and these questions will likely continue to shape its future. One of the most pressing questions is whether the Vatican will ever decide to fully open its archives. For years, scholars and historians have asked for greater access to the Vatican's secret archives, believing they could hold the answers to some of the most important mysteries of the past. The documents in these archives are believed to include papers dating back to the earliest days of Christianity, as well as documents related to significant historical events like the Inquisition, the rise of the Church, and even the actions of certain popes. There have been some attempts to slowly open the archives, but many remain sealed. Will future generations gain access to this treasure trove of information, or will the Vatican continue to keep its secrets tightly controlled? Another part of the Vatican's future mystery lies in its role in global politics. The Church has always had a powerful influence, quietly shaping events from the shadows as the world continues to change. The Vatican's influence may also evolve, as many of the Church's traditional political moves have been done away from public view. There's growing talk about how the Vatican will navigate the increasingly complex geopolitical landscape of the future. Will the Church continue to play a quiet but key role, or will it become more open in its dealings with world leaders and governments? There's also the question of the Church's relationship with modern times. Over the last century, the Vatican has had to respond to the constantly changing world around it. It has faced growing pressure to modernize, especially in areas like the role of women, human rights, and social justice. Some have wondered if the Vatican will continue to hold on to certain traditions that many see as outdated, or if it will adapt to the new realities of the modern world. The future of the Vatican's teachings and its approach to global issues will likely be shaped by how it balances its ancient traditions with the demands of modern society. Finally, as new secrets emerge over time, the Vatican's role in keeping or revealing these truths will become a central part of its legacy. Every new discovery, whether an ancient manuscript or a new interpretation of church history, adds to the ever-growing mystery of the Vatican. Will the Vatican finally embrace the idea of openness, or will it remain a place of secrecy and mystery? The future of the Vatican's secrets is still to be revealed, and it's a mystery that will continue to captivate the world for generations. In the end, the Vatican's future mysteries may be both a blessing and a burden. As the search for truth continues, one thing is certain. The Vatican will remain a key player in the world of history, religion, and intrigue, holding on to its secrets while the world eagerly awaits answers. The mysteries of the Vatican have fascinated people for centuries, and their appeal continues today. For many, the secrets hidden within its walls are more than just historical matters. They represent the unknown, what we want to understand, but may never fully discover. The Vatican holds a unique place in the world, combining religious authority, historical power, and an almost mystical air of secrecy. These elements make it an endless source of intrigue, drawing people from all walks of life to explore its hidden depths. What makes the Vatican's mysteries so lasting is their connection to bigger questions about humanity, faith, and knowledge. The Vatican isn't just a place of worship, it's a living archive of centuries of history, power, and influence. From its hidden archives to its impact on art, science, and global politics, the Vatican has shaped the course of history in ways few other institutions have. And yet, despite its undeniable influence, it remains a place of great secrecy, carefully controlling what information is shared with the world. This tension between power and secrecy fuels our curiosity and makes the Vatican's mysteries so captivating. Over the years, Many have tried to uncover the secrets the Vatican guards so closely. Some of these efforts have been successful, with new discoveries being made and some documents finally being revealed. But much of what is in the Vatican's vaults remains out of our reach. The idea that there are still hidden secrets, perhaps waiting to change our understanding of history, only adds to the air of mystery. People are drawn to the idea that there's still so much to discover, that somewhere in the shadows the answers to some of the world's greatest mysteries are still hidden. The Vatican's role in shaping not only the Catholic Church but also the very fabric of world history ensures its place in the discussion for years to come. The mysteries of the Vatican aren't just about what's hidden inside, they're about what these secrets represent. What do they tell us about power, control, and the desire to shape history? What do they tell us about the nature of truth and the way it's controlled? These questions remain relevant today, just as they were centuries ago, and they continue to inspire those who seek to understand the deeper forces that shape our world. Ultimately, the lasting appeal of the Vatican's mysteries lies in the fact that they represent unexplored territories of human understanding. They remind us that there's still so much we don't know, and perhaps never will. And as long as the Vatican remains a centre of power and mystery, it will continue to captivate our imaginations, drawing us into its shadows and secrets, always wondering what truths lie behind its ancient doors. Thanks for sticking with us until the end. If any of these Vatican mysteries got you thinking, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear what sparked your curiosity. And if you enjoyed this journey through history and hidden stories, please subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a new mystery. Stay curious, sleep tight, and we'll see you in the next video.